Chapter 2233. Si Jing grabbed one of the Tianlei and stuffed it back in. When the other Tianlei saw this, they ran even faster. Come back, come back. Si Jing knew that something was wrong. He moved his hands and grabbed a lot of Tianlei. Seeing that the rock had already shattered, he hurriedly picked up another rock from the side and directly plugged the hole that had broken open. The Tianlei inside finally stopped running out. Most of the ones that had spilled out were caught by him. Only a few ran out without a trace and quickly disappeared into the surrounding sea of lightning. Phew. That scared me to death. Si Jing let out a long sigh of relief. His back was covered in cold sweat. This thing is really strange. Didn't he just smash the hammer once? So many Tianlei came out just like that. When he broke through in the past, he didn't even summon so many Tianlei. After staring for a while and making sure that the Tianlei inside were obedient and didn't come out, he finally felt relieved. He looked around. Fortunately, no one saw him. For some reason, he felt that he couldn't let anyone know about this. He picked up the hammer and walked to the side. This lightning pool wasn't bottomless. There were continuous reefs and peaks at the shore and bottom. The one he had just smashed was just the tip of the iceberg. Even so, it still gave him a great fright. He had just come to the Illusion God Palace. What if he didn't do something right and cause trouble for his master? Thinking of this, he put the hammer away. After walking for a while, he stood still again and looked at the large reefs in front of him hesitantly with a conflicted expression. After a while, he clenched his teeth and patted it. Buzz, buzz. A wave came from inside. The hammer at his waist started to move again. Behave. He let out a low growl and the hammer instantly quieted down. Then, he realized that the restless sounds from the reefs under his hand seemed to have disappeared. Si Jing's eyes lit up. This thing is interesting. In the room, Chu Luiyue was refining medicine. Within the heavenly square cauldron, the transparent karmic fire burned intensely. She methodically placed the medicinal herbs that she had prepared at the side in order. Many of the medicinal herbs were gradually refined, and a rich and bitter medicinal fragrance filled the room. Her eyes were fixed on the cauldron, and her mind was highly concentrated. This time he was going to refine a Grand Physician-level pill. Ever since she had a breakthrough in the Red Moon Desert, she realized that she had memorized quite a number of prescriptions from great physicians. Fortunately, she was already used to being cheated by DeBeo, so she didn't feel too bad about it. In fact, she even felt that it was quite good. What could be more comfortable than finding out that you've already done the relevant cultivation when you want a breakthrough? Time passed slowly. Chu Luiyue's refining speed was much faster than before. A few hours later, all the medicinal ingredients were finally refined. A scarlet gold flame gushed out from her palm and poured into the heavenly square medicine cauldron to carry out the final pill formation. Condense. With a clear shout, 2 layers of flames rapidly surged up. A pill intertwined with scarlet and silver slowly took shape. Chu Luiyue clapped her hands lightly, and the pill quickly flew toward her. She took out a jade bottle that she had prepared beforehand and placed the pill inside. Then she put away the item and pushed the door open. Chang Wanzhou was cultivating in his room. He sat cross-legged and his eyes were lightly closed. Vigorous divine power flowed continuously in his body, accompanied by a bone-chilling power of extreme cold. His entire body was covered in a thin layer of frost. His hair, eyebrows, and even his thick and long eyelashes were all crystal-clear white frost. His rose-like lips were slightly pale. Wisps of white mist emanated from his body. That was the cold air in his body that was still leaking out. The color of the words on the round letter hanging from his waist was also gradually becoming more and more intense. When Chu Luiyue entered, she saw such a scene. Her brows furrowed slightly. As if he heard movement, Chang Wanzhou slowly opened his eyes. When he saw that it was Chu Luiyue, he immediately woke up. He got up and went forward to greet her, while at the same time holding the letter. Master. Chu Luiyue handed over the jade bottle in her hand. Adversity Breaker Pill. It should help you dissolve part of the extreme cold power. Chang Wanzhou took the item. Thank you, Master. Chu Luiyue raised her chin. See how the pill works? If it works, I'll send you more later. Chang Wanzhou clenched the jade bottle in his hand tightly, pursed his lips and didn't say anything. He only nodded, then poured out the Adversity Breaker Pill and swallowed it. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth. Chang Wanzhou only felt a burning sensation rising from his throat. This burning sensation quickly rushed to his limbs and bones. His originally fair and clear face instantly flushed red, as if all the blood had rushed up to his head. Bang! The jade bottle in his hand suddenly fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. and his body seemed to have been drained of all strength, falling uncontrollably to the ground. Little Zhou. Chu Luiyue was shocked and immediately went forward to help him up. Just as she touched his hand, she couldn't help but shiver. It was so cold. Looking down, she saw that the skin on the back of his hand was suffused with a strange blood-red color, but it was also condensed with a layer of ice. This was not the same as ordinary frost, it was several times colder. She immediately turned Chang Wanzhou's wrist over, put two fingers together, and separated a stream of force from her body, and poured it into his yuan meridian. She immediately sucked in a breath of cold air when she saw what it was. The seal in Chang Wanzhou's body was suddenly broken, and the accumulated extreme cold power from before had lost its suppression and crazily rushed out. In a short period of time, it was like a flood, fiercely colliding. His body couldn't withstand such an attack. "What's wrong with your seal?" She looked up at Chang Wanzhou and asked anxiously. Chang Wanzhou clenched his teeth and shook his head, but he couldn't say a single word. In reality, the seal had already loosened. As his strength increased, the power of the seal also gradually decreased. After coming to the illusory god palace, there were several times when he felt that the seal was about to break. It was only with Cinyi's help that it was barely suppressed. But he didn't expect that the adversity-breaking pill that Chu Luiyue sent would unintentionally break this weak balance. As a result, the seal was broken, and the extreme cold power that had been suppressed began to surge out. Chu Luiyue quickly realized that now wasn't the time to ask about this. At this time, Chang Wanzhou's aura was also rapidly rising. The tongue at his waist was about to explode. Chapter 2234. Chu Luiyue then split out a portion of her force and sent it into Chang Wanzhou's body, wanting to forcefully suppress this extremely cold force. However, she soon realized that it was already too late. The power of extreme frost had already spread throughout Chang Wanzhou's body and seeped into his muscles, bones, and flesh at an astonishing speed. The ice on his body was still gradually condensing and accumulating. At that moment, Cinyi suddenly walked in from outside. Chu Luiyue turned to look at him. "Cinyi, the seal in little Zhou's body has been broken." Cinyi frowned slightly and walked over to Chang Wanzhou's side. His gaze quickly swept past Tuan Xinzi at Chang Wanzhou's waist. Then he said in a low voice, "I'm afraid it won't be possible to forcefully seal him now. Then, it's better to let him go. As long as he can convert all the frost energy into his own, he'll be able to get out of this crisis." Chu Luiyue's pupils constricted. "You're saying that we should let little Zhou break through to become a god?" Cinyi nodded. "Didn't you have this plan before, mistress? Now is the best opportunity." Chu Luiyue clenched her teeth and frowned. "I did have this idea, but it definitely won't be like this." Chang Wanzhou had broken through to become a god a long time ago. From what Chu Luiyue knew about him, his strength had been rising rapidly. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before he could attempt to become a god. But now, this was too sudden. The threshold to becoming a god wasn't easy to cross. Even those who were fully prepared might not succeed in the end, let alone Chang Wanzhou's current situation. The frost energy was wreaking havoc in his body. If he wasn't careful, he might. In this situation, no one can help him. He can only rely on himself. Cinyi's expression was as calm as ever. Chu Luiyue was caught in a dilemma. Of course, she knew that Cinyi was right. If Chang Wanzhou absorbed the energy himself, no one knew how much of an impact it would have on his body, or if he could withstand it. However, if she didn't do that, Chang Wanzhou would still be in great danger. After all, the frost energy had already gone out of control. Suddenly, Chu Luiyue felt Chang Wanzhou's wrist move. She turned her head. Chang Wanzhou's head was slightly lowered, and his entire body was trembling slightly. Blood was surging all over his face, and only his lips were deathly pale. He gritted his teeth and enunciated each word clearly. "I can break through to become a god." Although his voice was soft, it was not to Chu Luiyue's determination. After a while she nodded. "All right, I'll stand guard for you." Was to Wanzhou's of the frost energy of the frost of the Xinzis, to turn to Zins. Cinyi glanced at him with a deep gaze. Then he looked at Chu Luiyue. "Master, it's better for me to take care of this matter. He still needs some time to break through to become a god. Also, he might need some pills to nourish his yuan meridian." Chu Luiyue immediately understood Cinyi's meaning. "You're right." Unlike others, Chang Wanzhou wanted to use the frost energy to temper himself and improve his strength. Even if he succeeded in the end, in the process, the extreme cold energy would cause a certain amount of damage to his body. When that happened, he would need to recuperate. Suddenly she frowned. "I'm afraid ordinary pills won't work." Chang Wanzhou's constitution was special to begin with. Ordinary pills would be useless if he wanted to recuperate his body. Mistress, I know a prescription that can help him recuperate. Little Hachi had arrived at the door. Chu Luiyue looked at her. What is it? The stabilizing pill. Little Hachi blinked and then shrugged helplessly. Although I have the prescription, I don't have many of the herbs listed. Also, Mistress, this is a pill at the level of a supreme doctor. She could go to the treasure pavilion to ask for the herbs. But she hadn't reached the level of a supreme doctor yet, and this was difficult. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and said, Give me the prescription. Give me the prescription. I'll think of something. Little 8 took out a bunch of prescriptions and picked through them before finally finding them. Here, this is it. Chu Luiyue took the prescription and quickly looked through it. You guys stay here and guard the small boat. I'll go out first. With that, she left in a hurry. Only when her figure disappeared did Sun-Yi look at Little Hachi and say calmly, This is what you should do. Little Hachi shrunk her neck guiltily. Big brother, it's really not my problem. It's that stabilizing pill. It's very difficult. Also, I haven't even seen the herbs in the prescription, let alone refine them. Sun-Yi narrowed his eyes. Even Peach Blossom Cove doesn't have it? Little Hachi pursed her red lips. Third brother does have it, but it's pitifully little. Even if he brings it all back, it's at most enough to refine one pill. You know how stingy he is. How could he bear to give it to me? Now that they were in the Illusion God Palace, it was too late to go down and find Sanson. Also, it wasn't worth it. Who could guarantee that this pill could be successfully refined in one try? Actually, when I went to Herb Mountain last time, I vaguely saw some. But that 8th divine envoy refused to let us go over and didn't let us take the things, so we had no choice. We can only place our hopes on Mistress. Sun-Yi lowered his eyes and finally sighed. Got it. You can leave first. Why? I'll stay here and watch over him with Big Brother. It just so happens that I've always been interested in the cold energy in his body. Before she finished speaking, she felt Sun-Yi's gaze land on her. Just as her butt touched the stool, she tactfully stood up and said with a smile, Big brother, you're busy. I'll go stand guard outside. With that, she floated out. Sun-Yi raised his hand and set up a barrier in the room. With the suppression of this power, Tuanshinzi at Chang Wanzhou's waist quietly retracted its aura. Chu Luiyue quickly arrived at the treasure pavilion. Seeing her, Mingshu hurriedly put down the account book in his hand and went to welcome her. Miss Shangguan, how did you find the time to come here today? Could it be that you're here to copy the Shen formation? Chu Luiyue saw through his thoughts and lightly shook her head. I came here today to buy some herbs. Sun-Yi chuckled. You're welcome. What do you want? Just tell me. Chu Luiyue handed over the prescription. Mingshu took it with both hands. After glancing at it, his brows furrowed. His expression was a bit awkward. Miss Shangguan, I'm really sorry. There's one thing on this list that our treasure pavilion doesn't have. Chapter 2235. You don't have it either? Chu Luiyue was very surprised. Qing coughed and explained. Miss Shangguan, you don't know. This crouching dragon carom is extremely precious and can be considered a top medicinal herb. Anyone who wants it has to go to Herb Mountain personally and get the approval of the 8th divine emissary. Chu Luiyue felt that it was ridiculous. Although the crouching dragon carom is rare, it doesn't need to be like this. The Peach Blossom Dock also had it, but it was rare. The Illusion God Palace had it on Herb Mountain. Why did it have to be so complicated? Mingshu was also in a difficult position. This is the rule set by the 8th divine emissary. It has been like this for many years. Also, because everyone can only get a limited amount, very few people are willing to send it to Treasure Pavilion to trade. Naturally, we don't have it here. Chu Luiyue sneered. So the divine emissary is also interested in monopolizing. Although she hadn't met the 8th divine emissary, she had a rough idea of what kind of person he was. Previously, she didn't pay much attention to Little Hachi's complaints. Now, it seemed that she had underestimated the 8th divine emissary's control of Herb Mountain. Qing quickly said, Miss Shangguan, if you need it urgently, why don't I go to Herb Mountain personally? Chu Luiyue's lips curved up into a smile, but she rejected his suggestion. Thank you for your kindness, Lord Mingshu, but it's not convenient for you to do this. It's better for me to go myself. A considerable part of Treasure Pavilion's income was blocked from Herb Mountain. She guessed that they didn't have a good relationship with the 8th divine emissary. If Mingshu went personally, things would become more troublesome. Qing was still worried. Although this person was quite famous in the Illusion God Palace recently, breaking Mu Yaofeng's record on the star path and entering the deepest part of the lightning pool. But the 8th divine emissary didn't buy it. What if she went over and the 8th messenger didn't have eyes and wronged her? Do you want me to find someone to go with you? Chu Luiyue shook her head and smiled. Don't worry, I know what to do. With that, she turned around and left. Ming Shu wanted to follow her, but after some thought, he went up to the 2nd floor. What? Madam went to Herb Mountain? Yan Gu, who was lying in his room and feeling so bored that grass was about to grow, opened one of his eyes when he heard this. You explained the situation briefly, feeling very nervous. It's not just the crouching dragon carom. There are also some other special herbs that the 8th divine emissary guards very tightly. Isn't peacemaking money? Our Zhenbao Pavilion has never had the intention to touch these things. Who knew that Madam would come today to ask for it? Yan Gu thought for a while, closed his eyes and waved his hand lazily. It's fine, it's fine. With our Madam's talent and strength, it won't be a problem for her to ask for a few stalks of hidden dragon fruit. Ming Shu was stunned. Second master, you mean? Madam is also quite talented in alchemy? Humph, what do you mean by rather talented? Do you know how to speak properly? Yan Gu snorted in disdain. Madam, you're not even 20 yet, but you're already a senior physician. It's only a matter of time before you break through to become a senior physician. Is this something that ordinary people can compare to? Yu was shocked at first, then the corner of his mouth twitched. It was indeed very rare to be able to break through to the rank of grand physician at this age. But how could it be so easy to become a senior physician? Moreover, Madam didn't have a bloodline totem. The 8th divine emissary's attitude wouldn't be good just because of the clump of tongues hanging on her waist. The 2nd master was really too careless. 2nd master, you know what kind of personality the 8th divine emissary has. If Madam goes there herself, isn't it obvious that she's going to bully her? It's fine if Madam can successfully get the crouching dragon fruit, but if she doesn't and is provoked by the 8th divine emissary? Yan Gu suddenly laughed. Xu Jing's personality is indeed very annoying. In the end, the Herb Mountain doesn't belong to her. She's just in charge of guarding it. How could she have the qualifications to set so many rules? That's true, but she's the 8th divine emissary after all. With her current status, it's really easy for her to do something to Madam. Madam finally came to the illusory god palace. If she suffers any grievances, Yu was still very worried. Yan Gu picked up the teacup beside him and blew on it leisurely. When he heard this, it was as if he had heard a joke. Our Madam isn't someone who's willing to suffer grievances. Besides, the first master has been coaxing Madam in all sorts of ways, both openly and secretly. He can't bear for her to suffer any grievances. How could Xu Jing have the right to behave so atrociously here? If she's sensible and knows that Madam has the support of Zhenbao Pavilion, she won't make things difficult for Madam. If she's not sensible, then it only proves that she's really tired of living. She was able to dominate the Herb Mountain for so many years only because the first master's thoughts are on Madam and can't be bothered to argue with her. Now, why don't you let her try to offend Madam? Yan Gu took a sip of tea and narrowed his eyes in satisfaction. TSK. Just wait and see. Chu Luiyue headed straight for the Herb Mountain. She was extremely fast and arrived at the place in no time. The air was filled with the smell of various herbs, which intertwined into a unique fragrance that was rich and slightly bitter. Taking a deep breath, it instantly refreshed one's mind and refreshed one's spirit. Chu Luiyue stood in midair and looked down. Looking at the continuous mountain range, as well as the various medicinal herbs growing on the mountain and at the foot of the mountain, even though she had long heard of it, it still caused her to exclaim in admiration. The illusion god palace was indeed extravagant. She looked around and quickly saw a field of crouching dragon carrots growing on a mountain peak in the distance. With a thought, she headed forward. However, at this moment, a barrier suddenly appeared in front of her and blocked her path. Immediately after, a cold and arrogant female voice sounded. Who's trespassing on the Herb Mountain? Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and looked forward. A young woman suddenly appeared. The moment she saw her, Chu Luiyue immediately understood the other party's identity. The 8th Oracle, Xu Jing. Chapter 2236. Xu Jing was also sizing up the woman in front of her. She looked no more than 18 or 19 years old. Her face was incomparably beautiful, and her red dress and black hair fluttered in the wind. There was a hint of nobility and valiance in her eyes that people would not forget and subconsciously revere. There had never been such a person in the Illusion God Palace before. Seeing the letter at her waist, Xu Jing's eyes revealed a hint of realization. You're Shangguan Yu? Chu Luiyue nodded. Greetings, 8th Divine Emissary. Xu Jing sized her up calmly. She had broken through to the god realm at such a young age. She was indeed quite capable. It was said that she was also extremely talented as a mystic cultivator and had even been chosen by the Treasure Pavilion. Thinking of the Treasure Pavilion, Xu Jing felt a hint of displeasure. What are you doing here? She asked mildly. Chu Luiyue immediately smiled. 8th Divine Emissary, this is Herb Mountain. I'm naturally here to take medicinal herbs. Xu Jing paused and said, You should know the rules of Herb Mountain, right? This? Little Hachi has already mentioned it to me, so I naturally know. Hearing this, Xu Jing frowned slightly. Chu Luiyue's expression and tone were fine, but for some reason her words made people feel uncomfortable. After all, she also disliked that little Hachi very much. Since you know, then it's easy. If you want to enter Herb Mountain, you have to exchange for a Grand Physician's pill. Otherwise, it's already prepared. Chu Luiyue interrupted her with a faint smile. With a flick of her wrist, a jade box flew out. 8th Divine Emissary, please take a look. Xu Jing raised her hand and caught the item. She opened the jade box and took a look. After confirming that it was indeed a Grand Physician's pill, she finally nodded. With a light wave of her sleeve, the barrier in front of Chu Luiyue instantly dissipated. Chu Luiyue thanked him and headed in a certain direction. Xu Jing looked back and saw that Chu Luiyue seemed to be heading for the Fulonko. He frowned. Wait. Chu Luiyue hadn't had time to pick up the crouching dragon cordon when he heard this sound. He paused and looked up. 8th Oracle, do you have any other orders? Xu Jing's figure flashed and appeared in front of her again. You want to take the crouching lonko? Yes. No. Xu Jing's face was covered with a layer of cold arrogance. The crouching dragon carum is a top-grade medicinal ingredient. Ordinary people can't use it casually. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered. The 8th Oracle. A familiar voice sounded. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw Liang He rushing over. He was holding a pile of medicinal herbs in his arms. At a rough glance, there were about 5 or 6 stalks of crouching dragon carrots. The other herbs were also quite precious. It seemed that he had just come from the nearby mountain range. When Chu Luiyue turned around, Liang He inadvertently glanced at her and noticed her. He paused and nodded at Chu Luiyue, but his expression seemed a little cold. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. She didn't seem to have offended Liang He. Was it because little Hachi had been ignoring him? But it didn't seem to be to that extent. 8th Oracle, these are the medicinal herbs I need to approve this time. Please take a look. Xu Jing glanced at it and a rare smile appeared on his face. Are you preparing to refine the vigor-stabilizing pill? Liang He nodded. Sure enough, I can't hide anything from you. I've been studying the vigor-stabilizing pill for a while and I plan to try it this time. Because the prescription is complicated, I specially took a few more sets of medicinal herbs. The vigor-stabilizing pill is one of the most complicated pills among the supreme doctors. Even experienced people may not be able to guarantee success. It's only right for you to make so many preparations. Xu Jing's attitude towards Liang He was obviously much better than Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue heard this and smiled. 8th Oracle, what a coincidence. I came here to take the crouching dragon carrot this time to refine the vigor-stabilizing pill. As soon as he finished speaking, Xu Jing and Liang He were both silent for a moment before they looked over with strange expressions. Xu Jing sneered in his heart and raised his eyebrows. Are you a supreme doctor? No. Chu Luiyue said honestly. I just became a senior doctor not long ago. The smile on Xu Jing's face deepened, but his eyes were full of ridicule. She wasn't even a supreme doctor, yet she dared to say that she wanted to refine the vigor-stabilizing pill? How ridiculous. Then you don't have the right to take away the crouching dragon carrot. Chu Luiyue raised her voice slightly. Then why can Liang He? Xu Jing glanced at her. He's a supreme doctor, aren't you? So only a supreme doctor can take away the crouching dragon carrot? Chu Luiyue asked. Of course. Xu Jing finished speaking and was about to leave. You can only stay here for a limited time. You'd better find some herbs as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll have come here for nothing. Xu Jing took a few steps, then suddenly stopped and turned around. By the way, don't try to take away the crouching dragon carrot by other means. The entire herb mountain is under my control. If there's any movement, I'll immediately notice it. Once I find out that someone is stealing, the consequences are extremely serious. Do you understand? Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slowly and smiled faintly. This 8th Oracle's words were really unpleasant to hear. Seeing that Xu Jing was about to leave, Chu Luiyue suddenly said. Wait. Xu Jing was a little impatient. What else do you want? Chu Liyue's lips curved up. I really need this crouching dragon carrot. Since Liang He also wants to try to refine the vigor stabilizing pill, why don't we compare notes here and let the 8th oracle be the judge to show fairness? If I succeed, I can take away the vigor stabilizing pill. If I fail, I promise that I will never step into Herb Mountain again. What do you think, 8th oracle? Chapter 2237. When Xu Jing heard this suggestion, her first reaction was to find it laughable and absurd. Was Chu Liyue crazy? She actually wanted to challenge the senior doctor as a master doctor? Did she think that the stabilizing pill could be casually refined? Are you sure? She stared at Chu Liyue and said word by word, you only have one chance. You only have one chance. If you fail this time, then you'll have to keep your promise and never enter Herb Mountain again. Can you do it? I've always kept my word. Chu Liyue smiled faintly. Herb Mountain is the territory of the 8th Divine Envoy. If I lose today, it won't be easy for me to come here again, right? That was true. Xu Jing was in charge of the entire Herb Mountain. She knew everything about anyone who entered and left the mountain and what herbs they used. Chu Liyue's suggestion moved her. If she could use this bet to exchange for peace, it would be worth it. Whether it was Chu Liyue in front of her or Little Hachi, she didn't like either of them. Especially after knowing that Zhen Bao Pavilion had taken a liking to Chu Liyue and was willing to support her, his dislike for Chu Liyue became even more hostile. She couldn't afford to offend Zhen Bao Pavilion, but now, since Chu Liyue had delivered herself to her door, what was there to hesitate about? Liang He listened from the side and frowned. After hesitating for a long time, he still persuaded her in a low voice. Miss Shangguan, why do you have to do this? I think you should just let it go. Chu Liyue's attitude was firm. Thank you for your kindness, young Master Liang, but I don't need it. I came here today to take the crouching dragon fruit. If he didn't allow her to take the crouching dragon fruit, then she would just refine the stabilizing pill and take it away. Liang He wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, he helplessly shook his head. He could see that this group of people were all the same. They all had pride in their bones. To be able to come to the illusory god palace, they were all giants among men. There was no doubt about this. But the key point was that none of them had a bloodline totem. In that case, they would have no advantage in the illusory god palace. If it were anyone else, they would have long since tucked their tails between their legs. However, this group of people, it was as if he didn't realize what kind of environment he was in. Chang Wanzhou's words that day had indeed affected him to a certain extent. Now, when he faced Chu Liyue, he felt that she was too arrogant. He really wouldn't turn back until he hit the wall. He hesitated for a moment and swallowed the rest of his words. The news that Chu Liyue and Liang He were going to compete in alchemy soon spread. Many people came from other parts of Herb Mountain to watch the show. Liang He is the youngest sovereign doctor in the illusory god palace. Even many sovereign doctors who have been famous for a long time do not dare to go against him. What is Shangguan Yu thinking? Why is she challenging him? I heard that this matter doesn't have much to do with Liang He. Shangguan Yu wanted to take the crouching dragon cordon, but the 8th divine envoy didn't agree. Shangguan Yu proposed to refine the foundation fixing pill here. Foundation fixing pill? Even Liang He hasn't succeeded in refining it, right? Shangguan Yu dares to do this. Is she also a sovereign doctor? Of course not. She personally told the 8th divine envoy that she had just become a grand doctor not long ago. She is still far from becoming a sovereign doctor. Then where does her confidence come from? We don't know. Also, I heard that if she doesn't succeed this time, she won't come to Herb Mountain again. The 8th divine envoy also agreed. I think there will be a good show to watch this time. Chu Liyue and Liang He stood facing each other on a relatively flat mountain. Xu Jing stood at the side and glanced at Chu Liyue. I'll say it again. You only have one chance. Once you fail, the competition will be over immediately. She was sure that Chu Liyue would be the first to lose. Chu Liyue's lips curved up. 8th divine envoy, although I'm not a sovereign doctor, my ears and memory are quite good. You don't have to repeat some things. Xu Jing's face turned slightly green. However, there were many people around at this time, so she couldn't do anything. She sneered in her heart and looked away. Liang He glanced at them and shook his head helplessly. Then he took out a bronze cauldron. The bronze cauldron had 3 legs and 2 handles. It was engraved with auspicious clouds and strange beasts. It was heavy and majestic. It was a venerable divine artifact. Although venerable divine artifacts were common, cauldrons were very rare. Liang He was very talented. With the help of this cauldron, his chances of success were greatly increased. Liang he rarely uses this cauldron. It seems like he's serious this time. I heard that the foundation fixing pill is very difficult to refine. I guess Liang he can't make it, right? I'd like to see how Shangguan Yu will deal with it. Her level is not high enough. Bang. Chu Liwei summoned the heavenly square cauldron with a thought. The whispers in the surroundings immediately dissipated. Even Xu Jing's eyes narrowed, and her expression was filled with surprise and uncertainty. After a while, someone said in a low voice, "Is that a divine artifact?" "I think so. I heard that she has more than one divine artifact. So, she has such a trump card. No wonder she's so confident. However, even if she has a divine artifact, I don't think she can refine a sovereign doctor level pill, right? But she might lose in a better way?" A few people in the crowd laughed. Obviously, they didn't think highly of Chu Liwei. However, Chu Liwei didn't care about this. She summoned the transparent karmic fire in the heavenly square cauldron with a thought. Then she started to put the herbs in one by one. Her movements were very smooth. When Liang he saw this, he no longer hesitated and attacked as well. In the main hall, Rong Xiu was sitting behind a table. He was writing something on a piece of paper. Yuemo was kneeling on one knee. That's about it. Now, many people in the Illusion God Palace know about it. Many people went to join in the fun. Rong Xiu's hand paused. Stabilizing pill? Yes. Yuemo secretly broke out in cold sweat. That person had just become a grand doctor not long ago. Now she was trying to refine a sovereign doctor level pill. Wasn't it obvious that she would lose? He didn't know what Xu Jing was thinking. He didn't even want to give her a few stalks of crouching dragon fruit. Wasn't he looking for trouble for himself? Hearing that Rong Xiu was silent again, Yuemo quickly looked up and mustered his courage to ask, "Master, should I send someone to send the crouching dragon fruit over?" "No need." Rong Xiu continued to write. It was too late now. There was no point in sending it over. Yuemo quieted down. In this main hall, there was no other sound except the sound of the brush on the paper. Yuemo felt a little cold. He sneaked a peek up the stairs. Is Master angry? Well, Xu Jing didn't know what to do. He thought for a moment and asked, "Master, why don't I go and talk to Xu Jing?" After a while, Rong Xiu finally stopped writing. He raised his head and looked over. His phoenix eyes were deep and cold. "Go and tell her that she doesn't want to be the 8th oracle. There are many people who can replace her." Chapter 2238. Yumo's heart skipped a beat. He lowered his head and said, "Yes." In the courtyard, little Hachi was sitting on a stone bench, counting the herbs in her hands. These were all taken from the treasure pavilion, so they were naturally of excellent quality. It was just that the quantity was a little low. She hadn't done much yet, but she had already seen the end of it. Thinking of her elder brother's instructions, she wrinkled her nose and snorted. Not everyone was as perverted as him. After tidying everything up, she turned to look at Chang Wanzhou's room. The door was tightly shut. Perhaps because Cin Yi had set up a barrier, Chang Wanzhou's attempt to break through to the supreme god level didn't cause too much of a commotion. Thus, it didn't attract any attention for the time being. More than 4 hours had passed. She didn't know what was going on inside. Little Hachi, Master hasn't returned yet? Hua Shuang walked over and asked curiously. Little Hachi shook her head. Not yet. That's not right. Master only went to the treasure pavilion to ask for some herbs. Why hasn't she returned yet? Hua Shuang frowned slightly. Little Hachi rested her chin on her hand. Maybe Master left her there to copy the Xian formation? Hua Shuang thought that it made sense, but after thinking about it carefully, she still felt that something was wrong. Little Zhou's situation is urgent. Logically speaking, Master shouldn't. She's at Herb Mountain. Don't you know? Xiao Ran's voice suddenly sounded. The two people in the courtyard turned around at the same time and saw Xiao Ran standing on the roof with his arms crossed, looking in their direction. Hua Shuang immediately asked. Senior Xiao Ran, you said that Master is at Herb Mountain right now? Xiao Ran nodded. That's right. It seems that you really don't know. Not only is she at Herb Mountain, but she's also competing with Liang He in alchemy. She even invited the 8th divine emissary to be the judge? Anyway, this matter has become quite big. Many people have gone there after hearing about it. Hua Shuang and Little Hachi looked at each other and saw the worry in each other's eyes. They had already seen what kind of place Herb Mountain was and what kind of person the 8th divine emissary was. Why did Master suddenly go there? Could it be because of the herbs matter? Xiao Ran shook his head helplessly when he saw their reactions. In fact, they couldn't be blamed. Although this news had spread throughout the entire illusory god palace, almost no one was willing to come and tell them. Although Chu Luiyue had become very famous recently, none of them had a bloodline totem. Who would waste their time and energy to befriend someone who was destined to be kicked out of the illusory god palace in the near future? And these few people were also very strange. Ever since they came here, it seemed that they rarely went out. Little Hachi lifted her skirt, got up, and headed in the direction of the herb mountain. I'll go take a look. If that Xu Jing dared to disrespect her master, she would never let her off. Hua Shuangshuang saw that she was about to rush over and fight, so she hurriedly stopped her. Little 8, it's better if I go. You stay here. Chang Wanzhou was preparing to break through to godhood and his big brother was protecting him. The courtyard still had to be guarded. Let her go. You stay. Xin Yi's voice came from the room. Hua Shuangshuang was stunned. Little 8's lips curled into a charming smile. Second brother, big brother already let me go. Don't stop me? Hua Shuangshuang could only shake her head helplessly. After you go, you have to promise to behave yourself. Little Hachi snorted and walked out. As long as that 8th divine envoy doesn't provoke me, I can't be bothered to argue with her. Hua Shuangshuang watched her leave, then turned to look at the tightly shut door. She really couldn't understand why Xin Yi let little Hachi go. But, he always had his own reasons for doing things. Nothing should happen. Xiao Ran asked with interest. Speaking of which, your master is really an all-rounder. Not only did she break through to godhood at such a young age, she was also a mystic cultivator. Her talent was so outstanding that even Zhen Bao Pavilion thought highly of her. What was even more unexpected was that she was actually a doctor. Hua Shuangshuang laughed and didn't try to be humble. Our master has always been outstanding. Xiao Ran rubbed his chin. She actually has such amazing talent without a bloodline totem. This is really unheard of. He had stayed in the Illusion God Palace for so many years and had seen countless cultivators, all of whom were extremely talented. But compared to that little girl, they were much inferior. You offended the 8th divine envoy before? He asked casually. Hua Shuangshuang was startled. Senior Xiao Ran, why do you say that? If you don't have any grudges with her, she shouldn't have done this? Xiao Ran couldn't understand. There weren't many people who knew about the relationship between Chu Luiyue and Zhen Bao Pavilion. But Xu Jing was the 8th divine envoy. How could he not know? Under such circumstances, she still did such a thing. Xiao Ran really couldn't think of any other explanation other than the fact that they already had a conflict. Hua Shuangshuang asked. After we came to the Illusion God Palace, we've been cautious and polite to everyone. How could we deliberately offend the 8th divine envoy? Wouldn't that be making things difficult for herself? Xiao Ran pondered. That's true. Then why did she do this? Hua Shuangshuang didn't say anything. He had seen Xu Jing once and naturally guessed that he didn't like them. But he didn't expect that they would actually offend his master this time. If Ming Shu was willing to step in, this matter would be easy to resolve. Unfortunately, Xiao Ran thought for a while and shook his head. Zhen Bao Pavilion never participates in this kind of thing. This time they probably won't interfere. I can only hope that the little girl will work hard and not be bullied too badly. Herb Mountain. On a mountain peak, Chu Luiyue and Liang He were refining medicine. Time passed slowly and the commotion around them gradually subsided. Many people looked at Chu Luiyue with eyes that were filled with disdain at the start, gradually turned serious and shocked. They saw that she was still continuously putting the herbs into the medicine cauldron. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water without any delay or slack. They finally gradually realized that Chu Luiyue's ability in refining medicine was far stronger than they had imagined. Is she really just a senior doctor? With this kind of technique and proficiency, she doesn't lose to Liang He at all. At first, I thought she was planning to imitate Liang He and try to refine the firmament pill, but now, it doesn't seem to be the case. She's one step faster than Liang He. Look, she's starting to prepare the crouching dragon carom. The crouching dragon carom was the most important ingredient in refining the firmament pill. Naturally, she had to be very careful. The slightest carelessness would cause the whole game to be lost and all previous efforts would be wasted. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and the only crouching dragon carom flew into her hand. The crouching dragon carom stem was green and slender, with layers of petals at the top. It was bright gold and looked like a dragon's scale from afar. Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes and plucked a petal from the edge and threw it into the medicine cauldron. Chapter 2239. A transparent flame rose up and instantly swallowed the dazzling golden flower petal. There was a small commotion in the surrounding crowd. she actually separated the crouching dragon carrot? The essence of the crouching dragon carrot is wrapped in the stamen. Once the petal is separated, the essence will quickly dissipate. Even I, who's not a celestial physician, know that the crouching dragon carrot needs to be refined as a whole. How could she not know? Who knows what she's thinking? I thought she was quite capable, but now, she's still a little reckless and ignorant. On the other side, Liang He raised his head to take a look and frowned. She was a celestial physician. Logically speaking, she shouldn't have made such a mistake. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed and a trace of shock flashed across them. On the opposite side, the transparent flame in the heavenly square sacred cauldron, after surrounding the petal, quickly condensed into a ball and separated from the flame below. The transparent ball of flame floated in the cauldron, burning quietly. But that wasn't the most important thing. What surprised Liang He the most was that the transparent ball of flame seemed to be hollow. The crouching dragon carrot's petal was very fragile. If the temperature was slightly higher, it would directly burn. However, the flame had already wrapped around it for a while, and the petal was still intact. The only change was that the edge of the petal was slightly curled, as if it was due to the flame. But this wasn't a bad thing. On the contrary, using this method could stimulate as much of the crouching dragon carrot's medicinal effect as possible. Liang He looked at it in a daze, and for a moment, he was a little absent-minded. He had studied the formula for the stabilizing pill for a long time, but he hadn't tried it because he knew that the crouching dragon carrot wasn't easy to deal with. But now, the scene that unfolded before his eyes enlightened him. It wasn't easy to refine the whole thing, so it was better to break it down one by one. Breaking it down one by one would be able to concentrate and increase the success rate. But, if that was the case, wouldn't the purest energy contained in the stamen be wasted? Liang He hesitated for a moment but still shook his head. He felt that Chu Liuyue's method wasn't feasible. He took out a crouching dragon carrot and carefully placed it in the cauldron. Under his control, the flames in the cauldron split into several streams and enveloped the entire hidden dragon carving. Everyone gasped in amazement. As expected of Liang He, his control over the flames is practically at the pinnacle. As expected of the youngest senior doctor of the illusory god palace. His sensitivity and flexibility in this aspect is not something an ordinary person can compare to. It's been a long time since he broke through to become a senior doctor, right? Although this foundation stabilizing pill is difficult, I think that he has victory in his grasp this time. Chu Liyue had already automatically ignored all the surrounding sounds. His eyes were fixed on the heavenly square medicinal cauldron in front of him. His entire body was tense and his mind was highly tense. She wasn't as relaxed as everyone else seemed, or rather she didn't care. This was because she herself did not dare to guarantee that she would succeed this time. Ever since she successfully refined the great physician-level pill in the Red Moon Desert, she realized that many of the prescriptions given by De Bao in the past were of this level. In other words, she had already learned these things before she had broken through. It was just that before she broke through, she was not very clear about the division of these levels, which was why De Bao had been fooled for so many years. However, there was also a great advantage to doing this. This allowed her to grow at an astonishing speed after she broke through that threshold. In the past, she had already understood most of those prescriptions. Now that she had officially broken through, many of the problems were solved. She did not need to spend any effort. She only needed to look at it a few times to master it. It was also because of this that she had put her energy into the senior doctor level prescriptions. Although she had never seen the prescription for the vitality stabilizing pill before, she was very familiar with these medicinal ingredients. She was also very familiar with the medicinal properties of these ingredients and the most suitable method of refining them. This was also why she dared to propose this bet. However, in the end, she had not had the time to truly try refining it before, so she could only be more careful. Her movements did not stop, and she quickly threw the petals of the hidden dragon carving into the cauldron one by one. Soon, every petal was enveloped by a small transparent fireball. They floated in the cauldron, each forming a small world. Xu Jing raised her eyes and glanced over. When she saw the situation in the cauldron, she was shocked and frowned slightly. Others might not be able to tell, but she understood how difficult it was to do this. It was naturally difficult to refine an entire hidden dragon carving, but it was not easy to separate all the petals and refine them at the same time like she had done. From a certain perspective, this had extremely strict requirements for a celestial physician's control. The slightest negligence could cause problems. However, Chu Liyue did not. All the transparent fireballs burned quietly in the cauldron, extracting the medicinal effects of the hidden dragon carving bit by bit. Xu Jing's gaze fell on Chu Liyue's face. At this moment, her forehead was already covered in fine beads of sweat, and her lips were slightly pursed. It was obvious that this was a huge drain on her mental and physical strength. However, her eyes were still bright and clear, filled with determination and persistence. It seemed like she could still hold on for a while. Xu Jing's brows furrowed even tighter. She was just a doctor. Logically speaking, she should have died long ago, but why was Chu Liyue still going on? On the other hand, Liang He's aura had been decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye since he started to process the hidden dragon carving. If this continued, it would be a problem whether he could hold on until the pill was formed. When little Hachi arrived, she saw this scene. There were already many people around and they were all looking in the same direction. "Hey everyone, please excuse me." Little Hachi could not see clearly from the outside, so she wanted to go forward. Her voice was soft and delicate, and many people turned around to look at her. When they saw that it was her, many of the people present revealed stunned expressions. Soon after, they hurriedly opened up a path. Little Hachi smiled and thanked them, then walked forward. Xu Jing noticed the commotion and looked over. When she saw that it was little Hachi, the expression on her face became even colder. "Didn't I remind you last time that you can't enter and leave Herb Mountain as you please?" Little Hachi smiled. "Eighth Oracle, I don't plan to go in either. Don't worry, I'll just stay here." Her eyes quickly swept over Chu Liyue, and her eyes lit up, and her smile deepened. "I'm just here to see how my master won. It's the same whether it's from afar or close up." Chapter 2240. Xu Jing's expression was cold and indifferent as he said calmly, "You seem to have a lot of confidence in her. The competition isn't over yet, but you're already so sure that she'll win?" Little Hachi tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and blinked suggestively. "I can't help it. Who asked my master to be so outstanding?" Xu Jing laughed. Everyone could hear the contempt and disdain in his laughter. "It's better not to say some things in advance. Otherwise, when the results go against our intentions, it won't be easy to clean up the mess." Chu Liyue was an arrogant person. Her subordinates were all like her. At this moment, Chu Liyue suddenly threw the remaining 2 petals of the crouching dragon carom into the cauldron. Then she slapped the cauldron. A cluster of reddish-gold flames poured into the cauldron and engulfed it. The blazing flames raised the temperature of the surrounding area. Xu Jing's expression changed. The reddish-gold flames were distinct. "Condense," Chu Liyue shouted. Following her command, all the fireballs in the heavenly square cauldron started to converge toward the center. Several fireballs merged with each other. The medicinal herbs that had been refined were also quickly condensed. This action immediately caused many people to exclaim in surprise. "She's actually planning to form the elixir? Isn't this too fast? Is the crouching dragon carom still in the cauldron? I didn't see it clearly. There seemed to be another flame coming out just now. She's so rash. Looks like she's anxious. Sigh, I'm afraid that Shangguan Yu is going to lose this round." Everyone was pessimistic. Many people shook their heads. Obviously, they thought that the competition was about to end. However, at this moment, all the flames in the heavenly square cauldron finally merged. Then a fist-sized elixir was condensed and formed. A powerful aura gradually spread from the top of the cauldron. Buzz. The heavenly square cauldron was hit by the force of the elixir and buzzed. All the sounds disappeared at this moment. Xu Jing's heart sank. He could hardly believe his eyes. The elixir was formed? The elixir was really formed. How is this possible? Invisible energy fluctuations continued to spread out from the pill. This voice startled Liang He. He subconsciously looked up and saw a round, shiny golden pill shrouded in the transparent flames. It was shrinking continuously. This was the final stage of the refinement. Furthermore, from the looks of it, it was clearly going to succeed. Liang He's mind was in a mess. Wasn't she a doctor? How could he possibly refine a supreme doctor-level pill? In a moment of absent-mindedness, the flame in the cauldron suddenly lost control and burned wildly. Boom! An explosion rang out. Liang He had a bad feeling in his heart, and he immediately tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and retreated. The flames in the medicinal cauldron ignited and exploded, and several sparks spread out in all directions with astonishing power. Seeing this, Xu Jing immediately waved his sleeves. A barrier flew out and trapped the bronze medicine cauldron. Only then did it stop the power from scattering wildly. The flames inside were gradually extinguished and ashes flew everywhere, leaving behind only a mess. Liang He's chest shook and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire face was pale. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stared blankly at the scene in front of him. He knew very well that he had completely failed this time. But on the other side, under the continuous tempering of the flames, the elixir had already changed from its original appearance to the size of a longan. The bright golden light was pure and rich. Swoosh. Finally, the elixir was completely refined, and it suddenly flew out of the cauldron. Chu Liyue's eyes were sharp and her hands were fast. She quickly flew up and grabbed the elixir tightly. Then, without hesitation, she put it into a black jade box that she had prepared beforehand. Clack. The jade box closed and locked the elixir inside. However, the air was still filled with a rich medicinal fragrance. Chu Liyue let out a long sigh of relief. Was done. Her red lips curled into a smile and she turned to look at Xu Jing. 8th Divine Envoy, the competition is over. Please take a look at this vitality stabilizing pill personally and see who won and who lost this round. After saying that, she flicked her wrist and sent the jade box out. Xu Jing was still a little dazed. Seeing that thing flying towards her, she subconsciously reached out to catch it. The cold touch from her palm to the bottom of her heart finally made her sober. Her whole body seemed to be frozen. Chu Liyue didn't rush her. She just looked at her calmly and seemed to be very patient. Everyone's eyes fell on Xu Jing. Obviously, they were also waiting for Xu Jing's answer. Xu Jing had never felt this kind of uneasy feeling before. She gritted her teeth, finally looked at the jade box in her hand, and then slowly opened it. Clack. A pill that was entirely golden in color was quietly lying within. With just a glance, Xu Jing immediately understood that this was indeed a successfully refined vitality-stabilizing pill. Her slender fingers gripped the jade box so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Chu Liyue's lips curled up slightly as she asked with a smile, 8th Divine Envoy, why aren't you saying anything? How is my vitality-stabilizing pill? Who is the winner of this competition? You're the judge. Naturally, everyone will only believe you if you say so. She wanted Xu Jing to admit that she had won. Xu Jing's throat was dry. She opened her mouth, but she felt that this sentence was really difficult to say. Suddenly the void shook and ripples spread out. A blurry figure slowly appeared. 8th Divine Envoy. Xu Jing was shocked. She immediately turned around, and a look of surprise flashed in her eyes. Why are you here? Chapter 2241. Chu Liyue looked up. The ripples in the air covered the person's appearance and figure. She could barely make out that he was a tall man. He didn't walk out of the mist. His entire body seemed to be shrouded in the mist. Even his voice sounded as if it was coming from afar and could not be heard clearly. 8th Messenger of the Divine Palace, are you treating the entire Herb Mountain as your personal property now? The voice was cold and calm, but it carried a heavy pressure. Every word was like a heavy stone falling down, making it hard for people to breathe. Xu Jing was the first to bear the brunt. Her face turned pale. She immediately lowered her head and said with a hint of panic, Xu Jing doesn't dare. Everyone held their breaths. It was so quiet that they could hear the rustling of leaves in the wind. At this moment, it was as if the entire space had frozen. Chu Liyue's eyebrows moved slightly. Who was this person? How could he make Xu Jing, the 8th Messenger of the Divine Palace, be so respectful and even fearful? They heard the man continue, Don't dare? Then do you dare to say that today's farce didn't happen because you used your status to do whatever you wanted? Xu Jing was shocked. Only then did she realize that the other party was here because of this matter. But, in the end, this was just a competition between two celestial physicians. Similar scenes often happened in the illusory god palace. It wasn't a big deal. The person in front of her rarely appeared. Every time he appeared, it must be because of that person's intentions. But why did this matter disturb that person? Countless thoughts flashed through Xu Jing's mind. It was chaotic, but she couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she tried. She pursed her lips and defended herself. It seems that you misunderstood something. Today's matter was mainly because Shangguan Yu wanted to take the crouching dragon Karam. But she wasn't a supreme doctor and didn't have a bloodline totem. She wasn't allowed to take this top-grade herb. I persuaded her several times, but she still insisted. In the end, she suggested that she wanted to compete with Liang He. In other words, the source of all this was Chu Liyue. If she wants to use it, just give it to her. Why do you have to deliberately make things difficult for her? The other party interrupted her. Xu Jing frowned. I've never deliberately made things difficult for her. I'm just following the rules. Rules? That person seemed to laugh. Whose rules? Xu Jing was instantly speechless. His lips trembled slightly, and his entire body was wrapped in a layer of cold air. She had been in charge of Herb Mountain for many years and had always followed her rules. At first she was still a little restrained, but then she realized that no one seemed to care about this, so she gradually relaxed. In the illusory god palace, countless celestial physicians were courteous to her. Anything related to Herb Mountain was up to her to decide. Over time, it was inevitable that he would become complacent. As of today, the rules had become even stricter, and Herb Mountain had become her sole authority. But she never would have thought that that person would choose to pursue the matter today. Since tens of thousands of years ago, anyone could enter and exit Herb Mountain as they pleased. But you acted on your own initiative and imposed all kinds of restrictions on those who enter and exit Herb Mountain. You should be punished. From today onwards, all of your rules are abolished. This voice spread far and wide, clearly landing in everyone's ears. Shu Jing felt as if she had been slapped twice in front of everyone. Her face was burning with pain. In front of so many people, this person didn't leave her any face at all. The surrounding people were still silent, but when they heard this, they secretly exchanged glances with each other. Who did the eighth divine emissary offend? But for so many years, it had always been like this. Why did today suddenly? In the future, anyone who wants to come to Herb Mountain can directly enter and leave. They can also take whatever herbs they want without any restrictions. Eighth divine emissary, remember you're in charge of Herb Mountain, but that doesn't mean that you control Herb Mountain. Shu Jing's entire body trembled. Her originally delicate and cold face was now deathly pale. She clenched her fists and finally couldn't help but take a step forward. But nothing can be accomplished without rules. I'm doing this for the illusory god palace. You're just a divine emissary. You don't need to worry about the illusory god palace. That voice was faint. The emperor said that if you don't want to be the eighth divine emissary, there are plenty of people who can replace you. Shu Jing felt as if she had been hit in the head. Her legs went soft and she almost knelt on the ground. There was no other sentence that could be more lethal than this. The surrounding people were also shocked, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Was this the emperor's will? It seemed that the emperor was serious this time. Such a warning was definitely not a joke. If Shu Jing made any more mistakes, the position of the eighth divine emissary might have to be handed over to someone else. She had been the eighth divine emissary for tens of thousands of years, and she could be considered to have a lot of experience. But even so, if the emperor wanted to punish her, it was just a matter of a sentence. How did Shu Jing offend the emperor? Yes. Shu Jing didn't dare to say anything else. She clenched her fists in her sleeves, and her meticulously manicured nails almost dug into her palms, causing her to feel pain. The figure gradually disappeared, and the void quickly returned to its previous calmness. However, the hearts of the people inside and outside of Herb Mountain were raging with waves of shock. After a short silence, someone turned and left. With one person taking the lead, the others quickly followed. Not long after, the originally lively crowd actually quietly dispersed just like that. Chu Luiyue surveyed her surroundings and fell into deep thought. These people obviously knew about the existence of the emperor, and they were extremely afraid of him. So much so that after that person left, the surrounding people didn't say anything and tacitly left on their own. They didn't even dare to talk about that person. They didn't know what kind of person he was. Could it be the lord of the palace of the illusory god? But it didn't seem like it. She couldn't figure it out, but she also knew that now wasn't a good time to ask these questions. She could only slowly understand it later. Lord Divine Emissary. She raised her voice slightly and called out to Shu Jing. Can you return my vitality stabilizing pill to me? As long as the people present weren't blind, they could see that she had won this round. Now that the biggest problem had been solved, Shu Jing's opinion wasn't that important anymore. Moreover, even Shu Jing couldn't protect himself now. Shu Jing came back to her senses and slowly turned around to look at Chu Luiyue. She took a deep breath and threw the jade box over with a flick of her wrist. Little 8 flew over leisurely. He looked around and stretched his back. Sigh, the scenery inside Herb Mountain is indeed different. Even the air is sweeter than outside. I thought that I wouldn't have a chance to come here in the future. Who knew that the world was so fickle? Shu Jing's face faintly turned green. Little Mina crossed his arms and tapped his fair chin gently with his finger. He said slowly, "Don't worry. Lord Divine Emissary, I guess that our master would win. Do you believe me now?" Chapter 2242. Shu Jing didn't say a word and turned around to leave. Her speed was very fast and she disappeared behind the distant mountain peak in a short while. It looked like she was running away in a sorry state. Pfft. Little Hachi shrugged. I told her the truth, but she refused to listen. I thought she was very powerful, but now it seems that she's just SOSO. Chu Liwei put away the stabilizing pill. Alright, there's no need to make things difficult for yourself because of this kind of person. Let's go. Little Hachi blinked her beautiful eyes and leaned forward. Master, who exactly is the emperor you're talking about? Even Xu Jing is so afraid of him? The other party didn't even come personally. He just sent someone to pass on a message. Look at how scared Xu Jing was. Chu Liwei narrowed her eyes and shook her head. I don't know. But, to be able to remove Xu Jing from the position of the 8th Divine Envoy, his status is obviously respected. That's right. Master, I just heard someone say that ever since Xu Jing ascended to the position of the 8th Divine Envoy, he has been tyrannical in Herb Mountain for tens of thousands of years, and that emperor has never cared. I don't know why he suddenly did this today. What do you think is going on? Could it be that he knows that Xu Jing is making things difficult for you, so he specially came to help? Chu Liwei couldn't help but laugh. You sure know how to think. How long had she been in the illusory god palace? Not to mention seeing him, this was the first time she had even heard of that emperor's name. How could it be because of her? Little Hachi hugged her arm. Master, I'm not talking nonsense. You see, there hasn't been any movement for so long. This is your first time in Herb Mountain and this happened. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Actually, it's not just me. I think there are many others who think so too. Chu Liwei pondered for a moment. It's probably that emperor has been dissatisfied with Xu Jing for a long time. Today he just happened to find an opportunity and made a move. Little Hachi was startled and murmured softly, That's true? If that was the case, it was very likely to be so. She had always been carefree, so she quickly threw this matter to the back of her mind. Master, when did you break through to Supreme Doctor? Why didn't I know about this before? Just now. What's wrong? Forget it. Pretend I didn't ask anything. Little Hachi waved her hand in frustration. Big Brother had been urging her to quickly break through to become a senior doctor, but she did not pay much attention to it. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, her master would actually break through just like that? Besides, was it really appropriate to use such a casual tone for such a big matter? They were all humans, but why was there such a huge gap between them? Little Hachi gritted her teeth. When she went back, she really had to work harder. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too shameful for her master in the future? Please wait. Liang He's voice came from behind them. Chu Liwei paused and looked back. Young Master Liang, is there anything else? Liang He's gaze swept across Little Hachi, then cupped his hands at Chu Liwei, looking a little embarrassed. Miss Shangguan's medicine refining skills are extraordinary. I admire you. Previously he thought that the other party was just a senior doctor and could not be compared to him. Who knew that the person who lost in the end would be himself? Not only did Chu Liwei break through to Supreme Doctor, she even succeeded in refining the vitality stabilizing pill on her first try. Such talent and strength was indeed something that even he could not compare to. He was sincere when he said, I'm impressed. Chu Liwei smiled carelessly. Young Master Liang is too polite. Actually, I suggested the competition today because I wanted to get the crouching dragon carrot. I hope young Master Liang does not mind. No. Liang He immediately waved his hand. To be able to learn from Miss Shangguan, I have benefited a lot. This was the first time he knew that the crouching dragon carrot could be refined in this way. However, he also knew how high the requirements for a celestial physician were. With his current strength, it would be very difficult for him to do it. Chu Liwei nodded. Actually, she did not have any opinions about Liang He. Compared to Xu Jing and the others, his attitude was already very good. Of course, she also knew that a large part of the reason was Little Hachi. However, Little Hachi was not interested in him. If young Master Liang has nothing else, we will take our leave first. Liang He hurriedly said, Wait. Actually, I do have some things I want to say. He hesitated for a moment, then looked at Little Hachi and said nervously but sincerely, Miss Little Hachi, Little Hachi sighed. Could it be that she did not make it clear enough? She really had no interest in him. I say, young Master Liang, I don't know if you have heard of this saying, a forcibly picked melon is not sweet. I have already expressed my feelings. What else do you want? Liang He did not expect her to be so straightforward and was momentarily at a loss. I just want to, don't think about it. I already have someone I like. Little Hachi bluntly interrupted him. Chu Liwei glanced at her. Seeing the smile in her eyes and her relaxed expression, she swallowed the words that had reached her throat. Liang He's face immediately paled, but he also felt a little unwilling. I wonder who Miss Little Hatchie likes? Is it someone from the illusory god palace? Oh. Then, Miss Little Hatchie, my words may be a little harsh, but they are sincere. A girl like you is beyond the reach of mere mortals. Although I have many shortcomings, I can be considered outstanding in the illusory god palace. Miss Little Hatchie blinked. It seems that young Master Liang really likes this girl? Liang, he cupped his hands. I am sincere. Then. Little Hatchie tilted her head. Why don't this girl take you in as well? You won't be able to sit in the position of the main wife, but seeing that your talent in celestial physician is not bad, I will give you the position of a side wife. How about it? Liang, he was shocked and widened his eyes. Little Miss Little Eight, what are you talking about? Little Hatchie shrugged, looking very sad. Didn't you hear it? Sigh, there are so many handsome men in the world. This girl can't bear to part with any one of them. If young Master Liang is willing to condescend, this girl can give you a chance. Big Brother already said that he allowed her to take in a husband. Liang, he finally realized what she was saying. For a moment, his blood boiled and his emotions became intense. After a while, he finally waved his sleeves. Miss Little Hatchie, even if you don't like this Liang, you don't have to humiliate me like this. Everything that happened before was just this Liang's fault. From now on, this Liang will not pester you anymore. With that, he left angrily. Chu Luiwei glanced at him. TSK. You've really infuriated me. No matter what, he is the youngest supreme doctor in the illusory god palace. He was angered by you and ran away. Who knows what people will say if this spreads out? Little Hatchie came over with a smile. Master, aren't you the youngest supreme doctor now? If he is angry, then let him be angry. What's the big deal? Chu Liwei shook his head helplessly and pulled her back. Someone will be able to cure you sooner or later. Digression, Yin Qing, main wife. Chapter 2243. As soon as she returned to her residence, Chu Luiwei found that an energy vortex had formed in the sky above the courtyard. The abundant energy of heaven and earth was surging downward. She was certain. Little Zhou was about to break through. This movement did not attract the attention of others. In the illusory god palace there were many venerable gods, but there were few supreme gods like Little Zhou. Therefore, even if they sensed the fluctuations here, no one paid too much attention. Chu Luiwei brought Little Hatchie into the courtyard and Shangguan Jing just came out of his room. Ever since he came here, he went straight into his room and almost never came out again. Seeing the two dark circles under Shangguan Jing's eyes, Chu Luiwei was stunned. Taizu, you didn't rest well? Shangguan Jing sighed. Sigh, it's not that I didn't rest well, I didn't rest at all. He rubbed his temples, threw a short knife in his hand on the stone table and sat down. Chu Luiwei glanced at the thing. It was shining brightly and extremely sharp. It was a good venerable artifact. You've been studying this recently? Yes and no. Shangguan Jing shook his head. I vaguely felt that I had touched the threshold of refining a sacred artifact, but I never succeeded. Every time I was just a little bit away. He had not rested for such a long time. He had been trying to break through the shackles, but unfortunately he had not succeeded. Chu Luiwei thought of what she had talked about with Rong Xiu. After thinking for a moment, she raised her head and looked at the distant illusory god palace. If this illusory god palace was exactly the same as the one in the Red Moon Desert, then, perhaps the secret of the sacred artifact lay in the black jade square inside? If she could enter the illusory god palace, then all her questions would be answered. Forget it, this kind of thing can't be rushed. Shangguan Jing had been in the weapon refining venerable realm for many years, so he was not in a hurry. No matter what, there was still some hope now. It was much better than when there was no hope at all. Who is about to break through? Seeing the swirling energy vortex, he asked in surprise. Chu Luiwei nodded. It's Xiao Zhou. A trace of surprise flashed across Shangguan Jing's face. So fast? I remember that he just became a high deity not too long ago. In his impression, Chang Wanzhou was still a skinny young man with delicate features. Who would have thought that he would become a god so soon? He seems to be about the same age as you, right? This innate talent. Shangguan Jing clicked his tongue. Chu Luiwei smiled helplessly and briefly explained the eruption of extreme cold energy in Xiao Zhou's body. He has no choice but to make a breakthrough now. Otherwise, the accumulated power in his body would be enough to destroy him. Shangguan Jing's expression became more serious. I see. He knew it was impossible for ordinary people to break through to this level in such a short period of time. The main reason Chang Wanzhou was able to do so was because of the astonishing power of extreme cold sealed within his body. I wonder where the power of extreme cold in his body came from? Sheng Guanjing murmured thoughtfully. To be able to seal such a power, he shouldn't be an ordinary person. And after so many years, Chang Wanzhou actually managed to survive. Even he was quite amazed. This was actually a question that Chu Liwei was curious about. Chang Wanzhou only said that it had been like this since he could remember, but he didn't know anything else. And the person he was looking for back then, boom. A powerful energy fluctuation came from the room. Chu Liu's expression was firm. He was about to break through. Then a bone-chilling chill spread out from the room. Chu Liwei clearly saw that a layer of white and transparent frost was rapidly condensing on the tightly shut door. The chill quickly spread everywhere. After a while, the eaves and pillars were all covered by this layer of ice. And there was no sign of it stopping. Sheng Guanjing's eyes flashed with shock as he suddenly stood up. What's going on? Chu Liwei frowned, and a hint of worry appeared in her heart. This aura could not be more familiar. It was the extremely cold power in Chang Wanzhou's body. Now, it seemed that this power had been completely released. She did not know if he could withstand such a shocking pressure. At this moment, the sound of air being torn apart suddenly came from the sky. Chu Liwei looked up and saw several silver Tianlei flying over from afar. She was suddenly stunned. This Tianlei actually came from the lightning pool? Just as this thought flashed through her mind, the Tianlei had already arrived in the sky. Then the frozen door opened with a bang. A figure dashed out of it and went straight to the top. Was Chang Wanzhou. He was obviously planning to face this Tianlei head-on. Boom. The Tianlei that arrived first exploded and instantly enveloped Chang Wanzhou's body. The other Tianlei that came after him followed closely behind. For a moment, silver light splashed in the sky, and the energy went wild. In the sky far away, there were still several bolts of lightning that were flying towards them in an endless stream. This scene finally attracted some people's attention. Who's breaking through? Looks like it's quite a big commotion. It seems to be Sheng Guanyu's residence. Could it be that one of her subordinates is about to break through? I heard that she brought 3 exalted gods with her. Could it be one of them? Then it must be a supreme god, right? But isn't this a little too grand? If this person succeeds in breaking through, his power will increase tremendously. However, I heard that they don't have bloodline totems. Even if they become supreme gods, it's still meaningless. Although everyone was a little surprised, they weren't too shocked by it. To a large extent, they did not take Chu Liwei and the others seriously. Even if they broke through, they did not think that there was a future for them. More and more Tianlei were gathering. Chu Liwei could barely distinguish Chang Wanzhou's figure. Suddenly, one of the Tianlei came toward the few people in the courtyard. Chu Liu's heart skipped a beat. Just as she was about to move, she felt that something was wrong. She quickly stopped Sheng Guanjing, who was about to make a move. Taizu, wait. That's Shijing. Sheng Guanjing was confused. What? As the two of them were talking, the Tianlei had already landed in the courtyard. At this moment they finally saw that it was really Shijing. The reason why they were mistaken was because there was a silver Tianlei on his back. They were quite far away just now, so the people below did not see it clearly. Master, why are you looking at me like that? Seeing their strange expressions, Shijing was stunned for a moment before he suddenly came back to his senses. He reached behind his back and pulled the Tianlei off. Why is there still one? Crack. He shattered the heavenly lightning with one hand. Chapter 2244. Chu Liwei, Sheng Guanjing. Little Hachi's mouth twitched and she took 2 steps back. Fourth brother, what's the meaning of this? Why did you become so wild after coming to the Illusion God Palace? Shijing's face darkened. Of course he was dark to begin with, so there was no difference. Little Hachi, don't talk nonsense. Your fourth brother is fine. Little Hachi pointed at the shattered Tianlei in his hand. At this moment, the fine silver light had silently entered his body. Then what is this? Shijing coughed. This is the Tianlei that I didn't have time to shake off just now. Didn't I go to the lightning pool before and wander around there? I don't know why, but these Tianlei can't be shaken off and keep following me. If it weren't for the fact that Chang Wanzhou was preparing to break through to the Supreme God level and attracted several Tianlei to him, he would probably be stuck there for a long time. Even so, he still brought a few back. On the way he dealt with them as he ran, but he still missed one. This led to the current situation. Little Hachi clicked her tongue. Fourth brother, you're really something. I don't see many girls chasing you, but this Tianlei is sticking to you? Shijing had a headache. He didn't know what was going on either. Shijing, you said that Tianlei followed you here of its own accord? Chu Luiyue suddenly asked softly. Shijing nodded. Yes, Master, I'm absolutely telling the truth. He had always been honest. There was no way he would lie in front of Chu Luiyue. I know. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. I just think, it's a little strange. This is a little, strange? Shangguan Jing felt uncomfortable all over. Why did each and every one of them seem to be so calm and collected? Come on, Tianlei had taken the initiative to follow him, and he hadn't even attacked yet. He had never seen such a thing in all these years. How could these people be so calm? Chu Luiyue glanced at him and raised his eyebrows. If Taizu saw what happened to her in the depths of the lightning pool, he would probably faint from shock. Considering that his family's Taizu was getting on in years, Chu Luiyue decided not to say anything for the time being. This illusory god palace is different from the divine ruins world. Even if it's strange, we have to accept it, right? Shangguan Jing choked. He thought about it carefully and felt that it made sense. Is that true? Chu Luiyue chuckled. Ever since you came to the illusory god palace, you haven't come out to take a good look, right? This illusory god palace indeed had many interesting places. It was true. Ever since that line of words flashed in the sky and summoned all the cultivators of the world, everything had changed. Shangguan Jing suddenly felt that it wasn't that hard to accept. After all, they had already seen many things that were beyond their knowledge and expectations, hadn't they? He looked at Mitsui again. You're not injured? Mitsui chuckled. I'm not injured, and my strength has increased a lot. Chu Luiyue smiled. Taizu might not know, but the lightning pool can refine the divine body. Many people in the illusory god palace go to the lightning pool to cultivate and improve their strength. Shangguan Jing nodded in understanding. I see. It seemed that he couldn't stay in this place forever. He had to go out and take a look. Chu Luiyue looked at Mitsui again and felt that something seemed to have flashed through his heart. Boom, boom, boom. Several sounds came from the sky. Even Chu Luiyue was amazed by this scene. When she broke through to the divine realm, it caused a huge commotion, and Chang Wanzhou wasn't much inferior. The extreme cold power stored in his body was truly vast and shocking. Cini also walked out of the room. He first glanced at the door and the frost on the pillars, then raised his eyes and looked up at the sky. Finally, all the Tianlei gradually disappeared and entered Chang Wanzhou's body. His figure gradually became clear. At a certain moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly erupted from his body. Divine breakthrough. Illusory God Palace. Xu Jing's face was pale as she walked forward with shaky steps. Her hands clenched into fists in her sleeves as she lowered her head slightly. Her eyes were empty and unfocused. Everything that happened just now was still replaying in her mind. Whose rules are these? You're in charge of guarding the Herb Mountain, not managing it. If you don't want to be the 8th divine envoy, there are plenty of people who can replace you. A faint sweet and fishy taste spread between her lips and teeth. Immediately after, she felt a sharp pain. She had unconsciously bitten her lips until they bled. A trace of blood seeped out, making her look even more haggard. But at this moment her entire body was dull and she did not react to this. Someone walked towards her and blocked her way. Stop. Xu Jing subconsciously stood still and raised her head to look. The person who came was Jin Yunlai. At this moment he was expressionless, but there was a layer of biting cold air between his brows. His eyes were faintly surging with anger. Xu Jing's heart trembled. She had always been a little afraid of Jin Yunlai, not only because he was stronger than her, but also because he was ranked 7th and had a higher status than her. Many people thought that all the divine envoys had the same status, but that was not the case. The ranking of the divine envoys itself represented a strict hierarchy. It was just that they usually did their own jobs and did not interfere with each other, so this was not obvious. But if something big happened or at a critical juncture, Jin Yunlai, who was ranked ahead of her, was definitely qualified to teach her a lesson. Looking at his reaction now, it was obvious that he already knew what happened at Herb Mountain. 7th Divine Envoy, she was interrupted by Jin Yunlai as soon as she opened her mouth. What did you do to alarm that person? Xu Jing gritted her teeth. 7th Divine Envoy, you should know what happened. I was just doing my own thing step by step. Jin Yunlai stared at her sternly and coldly. Xu Jing almost couldn't take it anymore. She closed her eyes. I went overboard. I shouldn't have set so many rules for Herb Mountain, and I shouldn't have mistakenly thought that I had any control over Herb Mountain. That's not it. Jin Yunlai's tone was firm. Xu Jing was stunned. What do you mean? That person personally came over and said that Herb Mountain is very important. It's also true that you overstepped your authority and controlled Herb Mountain for many years. But why, regardless of whether it was earlier or later, did it have to be today? Jin Yunlai narrowed his eyes dangerously. What's more, these things may seem important to others, but to the Emperor, it's not worth mentioning. It's definitely not worth him taking action. You must have done something else and crossed that person's bottom line. Chapter 2245. Xu Jing's face was filled with shock. But I didn't. She suddenly thought of something and her expression changed. Could it be because of that Shangguanyu? But even if she has the support of Precious Treasure Pavilion, it shouldn't be to this extent, right? Jin Yunlai frowned. Actually, after knowing about this matter, he also thought about it a lot. After guessing and guessing, it seemed to point to that person. But didn't she just come to the Illusion God Palace not long ago? Why would the Emperor personally come for such a person? No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem right. But other than this reason, there didn't seem to be any other explanation. It seems that she's more important to Precious Treasure Pavilion than we expected. Jin Yunlai paused. I've reminded you before that you shouldn't casually provoke the people that Precious Treasure Pavilion wants to protect. What happened now? Being reprimanded in public and losing face was one thing, but the most important thing was that her position as the 8th Divine Envoy was also in danger. Xu Jing bit her lip and couldn't say anything. Even if she didn't want to admit it, she knew that she was in big trouble this time. And it was very likely that it was because of that Shangguanyu. Why would the Emperor do this for such a person? The Emperor's intentions aren't something that you and I can guess. This matter is over. Don't do it again in the future. Jin Yunlai's gaze was cold. Otherwise, let alone me, even the first divine envoy won't be able to help you. Shuddering from head to toe, Xu Jing nodded with difficulty. Thank you for the reminder, 7th divine envoy. I understand. Chang Wanzhou slowly opened his eyes. In an instant, a cold light seemed to appear in those clear and cold eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. He let out a long breath. The extremely cold power sealed in his body had been converted into his own divine power. Abundant energy surged in his limbs and bones, and every part of him seemed to contain an astonishing explosive force. He raised his hand and pointed forward. Buzz. The void shook. Ripples spread out in all directions. He swept his hand and calmed the ripples. This feeling of lightness in his body. It had been many years since he felt so light. He raised his eyes and looked ahead. At the end of the distance, a majestic palace stood. Sacred, solemn, and inviolable. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the expression in his eyes had returned to normal. Then his figure moved and he came to the courtyard. He stood still a few steps away from Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue's lips curved into a smile. Congratulations, Xiaozhou. It was very rare for someone to become a god at such a young age. What's more, his body's condition was rather special. Being able to succeed this time was really something to be happy about. Chang Wanzhou fixed his eyes on her, and there seemed to be waves surging in his eyes. Chu Liyue was startled. Xiaozhou, what's wrong? Chang Wanzhou lowered his eyes. Thank you, Master. Chu Liyue felt that he seemed a little strange, but he couldn't tell what the problem was. The way he looked at me just now, perhaps it was because he had just become a god and was not used to it yet? Chu Liyue thought to himself. She stepped forward. Give me your hand. Chang Wanzhou obediently raised his hand. His wrist was thin and white as if it could be easily broken with a little force. However, who would have thought that such a young man had become a god? Chu Liyue put her fingers on his wrist and separated a part of her power to check it. The power of extreme frost in his body had indeed completely dissipated and turned into his own power. However, the sudden burst of power was too strong and caused a great impact on his key meridians. There was indeed some loss. However, this was not important. He just needed to recuperate. She retracted her hand and handed over the stabilizing pill. Now that you are a god, your strength has been greatly improved in all aspects. You should be able to recover by yourself. With this stabilizing pill, you will be completely healed in less than half a month. Chang Wanzhou took it with both hands. The jade box was cold to the touch, but he felt hot in his palm. Thank you, Master. Chu Liyue smiled and rubbed his hair. Why did you suddenly become so serious after becoming a god? Chang Wanzhou's rose petal-like lips curved slightly and said softly, Master is master. Chu Liyue did not mind. He had always been quiet and reserved. I don't have to worry about your body anymore. Chu Liyue was very happy, but then she immediately shook her head. I don't know who put the seal on you. Chang Wanzhou lowered his eyes and did not say anything. Forget it. Anyway, it's fine now. It doesn't matter if we can't find out. Chu Luiyue said. She did not know how many years ago it was. Chang Wanzhou himself did not remember, so it was even harder to say. Chang Wanzhou nodded. I'll listen to you, master. Chu Luiyue could finally let go of one of her worries. After saying a few more words, she decided to make a trip to Zhenbao Pavilion. She had not finished copying the mythical flame diagram yet. In addition, she also wanted to see if she could get a chance to meet the second-in-command of the Treasure Pavilion. When Chu Luiyue arrived at the Treasure Pavilion, there was almost no one there. Ming Shu was arranging the medicinal herbs on the shelves. Lord Ming. Hearing the voice, Cheng hurriedly turned around and saw Chu Luiyue. He immediately smiled. Oh, Miss Shangguan, why are you here today? Chu Luiyue looked around. I came when I was free. But your shop, why is it so quiet? Cheng laughed. People can now enter and leave the herb mountain at will. They can get whatever medicinal herbs they want. Naturally, there are fewer people here. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched. This seemed to be caused by her? Digression. February, silently Empress, kill the Empress. Xiao Zhou. Don't be so dramatic. February, aggrieved, 6 p.m. Chapter 2246. It was rare for her to feel a little embarrassed. I'm really sorry. I didn't expect this matter to blow up and even implicate Zhenbao Pavilion. Zhuo looked at her strangely. Miss Shangguan, why do you say that? Chu Luiyue coughed. If I didn't insist on going to Herb Mountain to get the Crouching Dragon carrot, all these things wouldn't have happened and affected Zhenbao Pavilion's business. Oh, you're talking about this? Ming Shu immediately understood and laughed. You don't have to apologize for this matter. Anyway, Zhenbao Pavilion doesn't rely on those herbs to make a living. It's just a little less money. Whether it's Shen formations, divine weapons, or even divine beasts, they're all much more important than herbs. Chu Luiyue was stunned. You mean, think about it. The illusory god palace has that herb mountain, and there are countless heavenly treasures growing there. Although the 8th divine emissary has set many rules, most heavenly doctors are still able to enter and get what they want. Only a small part of it needs to be operated by Zhenbao Pavilion. Speaking of which, this amount of money isn't much. You don't have to take it to heart. Chu Luiyue, this Zhenbao Pavilion is really rich and overbearing. So many herbs business and they just gave up on it. If it was Sanson, she would probably cry on the spot. She carefully thought about Zhuo's words and felt that it made sense. However, she still felt a little apologetic for causing losses to others. You, on the other hand, are really famous in the illusory god palace now. Ming Shu gave a thumbs up and praised from the bottom of his heart. Everyone said that because Miss Shangguan insisted on competing with Liang He in alchemy, that person finally took action and suppressed the 8th divine envoy and abolished all the rules she set. From then on, everyone can enter Herb Mountain as they wish. Who knows how many people are grateful to you? Chu Luiyue laughed. You're joking. This matter really has nothing to do with me. She just wanted to get a few Crouching Dragon carrots. As for what happened after that, it really wasn't in her control. Zhuo chuckled. No matter what, your position in the illusory god palace will be different from before. When they see you, they will have to thank you personally. The corners of Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. He didn't take this matter to heart. Actually, she didn't really care about how those people treated her. It's good that you don't blame me. This time, I'm here to continue copying the mythical flame diagram. Ming Shu hurriedly said, Please? Chu Luiyue asked as he walked upstairs. Is the second master feeling better? Much better, much better. Who would have thought that Miss Shangguan was still thinking about this? Ming Shu asked in surprise. Chu Luiyue stopped in his tracks and smiled faintly. I wonder if second master has the time to meet me this time? Ming Shu looked a little troubled. I'm afraid that's not possible. You don't know, but our second master hasn't returned for a long time. This time, on the one hand, he needs to recuperate. On the other hand, we need to show him the bills of the treasure pavilion for the past few years. I don't think he has time to see you in a short period of time. He glanced at Chu Luiyue carefully. Miss Shangguan, do you have something urgent? Chu Luiyue paused for a moment and chuckled. Not really. Since second master doesn't have time, then forget it. It's the same if we meet in the future. With that, she turned and walked up to the second floor. The entire second floor was as quiet as ever. Chu Luiyue went straight to the room from last time. After entering, she found that everything was exactly the same as when she left last time. Zhao stood at the door and said with a smile, Don't worry, only you can come in here. No one else is allowed to barge in. So, it's the same as when you left. Chu Liyue thought that it was good for them to do this since the mythical flame diagram was a treasure here. At least it would save her a lot of trouble. Then you go ahead. I'll leave now. Chu Liyue nodded. Take care, Lord Ming. Zhao left very quickly. It was obvious that he trusted her very much. Chu Liyue pulled out a chair and sat down. Then, she took out the mythical flame diagram. This time, Chu Liyue copied 15 Shen formations in one go. The ones in the first volume were not difficult for her, so she finished them very quickly. Then she picked up the second volume and looked at it for a long time. When she flipped to the Heavenly Demon Shen formation, she paused and stared at it for a while. It's indeed a little difficult, she muttered softly. Even a great grandmaster would need a lot of time to completely comprehend it. No wonder Xiaoran was trapped for so long. It's a little similar to the Sky Shuttle formation, she said thoughtfully. In fact, all the Shen formations that started with the word Tian in the second volume seemed to be a little similar to the Sky Shuttle formation. Because she had already forcefully engraved the Sky Shuttle formation in her mind, it was much easier to look at these now. Although she had already memorized many Shen formations in the Red Moon Desert, it was not so easy to master them. Fortunately, her realm had increased, so these were not too big of a problem for her. After staying for a while, she stood up. After handing over the copied Shen formations to Mingshu, she quickly left. Originally, she wanted to return to her residence directly, but halfway there, she suddenly noticed a figure flying across the sky. She looked up and saw a familiar back view. The seventh divine envoy? Looking at the direction, it was still heading for the Heaven Gate. She blinked her eyes and immediately realized that someone else had probably come. The Heaven Gate would be open for a year. During this period, all the cultivators in the Divine Ruins could enter the illusory God Palace as long as they could cross the sea and climb the bridge. It had been almost a month since they came here, so it was normal for others to come. Chu Liyue looked in that direction and was curious. She wondered who had come this time. However, she was a little far from the Heaven Gate, so she could not see the facial features of the people. She could only vaguely see that there were quite a few people, at least 7 or 8. Jinyun Lai arrived at the Heaven Gate and began to inspect them one by one. Chu Liyue looked for a while and realized that for some reason, they seemed to be a little slow and did not come in. She was also a little bored from waiting, so she turned around and planned to leave. However, just as she took a few steps, she heard a voice from afar. Yo, isn't this Master Yu? Chu Liyue paused and looked to the side. The man in front of her had already crossed the Heaven Gate and was looking in her direction. At this moment, without the cover of the Heaven Gate's light, she finally saw the other party's face. Who are you? Chapter 2247. Chu Liyue said calmly. The man's expression froze for a moment. Chu Liyue looked at him inquisitively with a sincere face. She really didn't know this man. The man took a deep breath, straightened his clothes and said word by word, I'm sorry. Nan family Nanjinshu. Chu Liyue blinked. Oh, the Nan family? She had some impression of the name Nanjinshu. He used to be an elder of the Nan family and wasn't very famous. After Nan Yifan and the others died, he quickly rose to the top and became the current patriarch of the Nan family. Originally, it was not his turn to sit in this position, but after that battle, the Nan clan had suffered heavy casualties, and there were not many venerable gods left. This gave Nanjinshu a chance. During this time, there hadn't been any news from the Nan family. They were probably recuperating. Chu Liyue thought they would need a long time to recover. She didn't expect them to come to the illusory god palace. We're nameless. It's normal that you haven't heard of us. Nanjinshu quickly adjusted his state of mind and his expression returned to normal. Chu Liyue didn't want to continue the conversation. After responding, she turned to leave. Master Yu, please wait. Nanjinshu immediately called out to her. Chu Liyue turned back. Patriarch Nan, is there something else? Nanjinshu smiled and his gaze landed on the letter at her waist. Nothing, I just find it strange. You don't have a bloodline totem. Why are you here? Chu Liyue also smiled. I can't help it. My talent is too good. Although I don't have a bloodline totem, I'm much stronger than most people. I thought I might as well walk around the illusory god palace. What, does Patriarch Nan have something to say? Nanjinshu's eyes twitched. He knew Chu Liyue was sharp-tongued. Now that he saw it, it was true. Just as he was about to retort, his heart suddenly trembled when he met that pair of dark, calm eyes. He didn't forget how ruthless this woman was. If he fought her head-on, he would be the one at a disadvantage. Thinking of this, he chuckled. Of course not. I'm just surprised to see Master Yu here. Such a small matter can surprise Patriarch Nan. Your psychological endurance is really not that good. Chu Luiyue shrugged. Nan Jinshu's expression darkened. You, Nan Jinshu. Jin Yunlai suddenly called out to him. Nan Jinshu immediately turned around and cupped his fists. Seventh Divine Envoy, what can I do for you? Jin Yunlai quietly glanced at Chu Luiyue. Settle these people down first, then come to the illusory god palace. These words were directed at Nan Jinshu. Nan Jinshu immediately replied respectfully, yes. Chu Luiyue narrowed his eyes slightly. What did Jin Yunlai say? He wanted Nan Jinshu to go to the palace of the illusory god? Wasn't the palace of the illusory god heavily guarded? Wasn't it forbidden for ordinary people to enter? She thought about how much time and effort Mu Yafeng had spent on the star passage to obtain the right to enter. And Nan Jinshu went in just like that? Nan Jinshu's eyes flashed with pride as if he saw her shock. Master Yu will meet again in the future. However, I'll be spending most of my time in the palace of the illusory god, so I don't think we'll meet again. Chu Luiyue suddenly smiled. All right. Patriarch Nan, just wait. Nan Jinshu suddenly felt a chill in his heart. The rest of his words were stuck in his throat and he couldn't say anything. After a while he snorted. Master Yu, you don't have a bloodline totem. You don't know how difficult it will be to enter the palace of the illusory god. However, it seems that you're very confident in yourself. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows. What, Patriarch Nan? Are you worried that I won't be able to enter the palace of the illusory god? I'm not worried. I'm just stating the facts. Nan Jinshu smiled coldly. He knew how difficult it was to enter the palace of the illusory god. Even if Sheng Guanyu was extremely talented without a bloodline totem, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Chu Luiyue didn't seem to care. It's great that Patriarch Nan can enter the palace of the illusory god. The palace of the illusory god has been quite dangerous recently. Who knows when someone will take care of it? Staying in the palace of the illusory god is the safest. I don't have to worry about your safety. You, Nan Jinshu's face turned green with anger. However, he still felt some fear towards Chu Luiyue. He could only fling his sleeves and leave. Chu Luiyue glanced at the remaining people. They were all gods of the Nan family. Seeing the figures of those people gradually disappear into the distance, her brows slightly furrowed. There weren't many gods left in the Nan family. Did they bring the rest here? Didn't that mean the Nan family was just an empty shell? Or did they decide to put all their energy into the palace of the illusory god? It was obvious that the Nan family had an unusual relationship with the palace of the illusory god. At that moment, a few more people arrived outside the gate of heaven. Jin Yunlai turned around and looked at them. Did you guys come together after discussing? He asked indifferently. Although his tone was as cold as usual, there was a hint of familiarity in his tone. It's just a coincidence. A voice with a hint of laughter sounded. It was lazy, evil, and indifferent. Hearing this voice, Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. She immediately turned around and narrowed her eyes. Standing outside the gate of heaven was a man at the front. It was Jun Jiuqing, who she hadn't seen in a long time. The moment she looked over, Jun Jiuqing also looked over. Then he raised his eyebrows and his thin lips curled into a smile. Long time no see. How have you been? Digression. The Empress, kill the Empress. This is a line from Zhen Huanzhuan. It doesn't mean you, is the Empress. Chapter 2248. Jin Yunlai glanced back. You know each other? Jun Jiuqing's smile deepened. Of course. Chu Luiyue's gaze swept between the two. It could be seen that the relationship between Jun Jiuqing and Jin Yunlai was very subtle. Did you hear what I said to Nan Jinshu just now? Jin Yunlai said simply. Once you've settled everything, you can come to the illusory god palace yourself. Jun Jiuqing responded. Thank you, seventh divine emissary. Jin Yunlai nodded and turned to leave. When he passed by Chu Luiyue, his footsteps paused as if he wanted to say something. You? Chu Luiyue looked up at him. Jin Yunlai looked at her clear and bright eyes, but suddenly swallowed the rest of his words. What did he want to ask? What could he ask? Did the emperor's action to punish and warn Xu Jing have something to do with her? But she had only been in the illusory god palace for less than a month. She probably hadn't even heard of the emperor's name, so how could she know all this? Jin Yunlai looked down and glanced at the letter on Chu Luiyue's waist. The handwriting on it was still as clear as when he gave it to her on the first day. It was as if she hadn't lost anything during her time here. Jin Yunlai was surprised at first, but after thinking about it carefully, he felt that this should be expected. Chu Luiyue first walked a segment of the star path, then went to the depths of the lightning pool, then was selected by the treasure pavilion to copy Shen formations. No matter which one of these things was picked out, they were all extremely outstanding. Not to mention she had just broken through from a senior doctor to a senior doctor and successfully refined the foundation stabilizing pill on her first try. It was normal for her to be able to maintain the handwriting on the letter all this time. Other than the fact that she didn't have a bloodline totem, her performance in other aspects was impeccable. Seeing that he didn't speak, Chu Luiyue inquired. The seventh divine envoy? What was he trying to say? He stared at her for so long without saying anything. Jin Yunlai regained her senses and stared at her. Nothing. With that he lifted his foot and left. Chu Luiyue watched him leave and blinked. The seventh oracle's attitude towards her seemed to be better than before. Although the change was subtle, she had always been sharp. Jin Yunlai looked at her for a long time with a complicated look in her eyes. However, she no longer looked at her with contempt and disdain like when she first found out that she didn't have a bloodline totem. Could it be because of the recent events? Chu Luiyue rejected the idea as soon as it surfaced. If it was someone else from the illusory god palace, perhaps their opinion of her might have changed due to her recent performance. However, Jin Yunlai, the seventh divine envoy, was not included among these people. With his status, what kind of genius expert had he not seen before? In fact, he himself was one in a million. There were only a few people who could complete the Star Road in one go in 10,000 years. And he was the one who took the shortest time. Just this point alone was enough for him to look down on all the heroes. Would he be interested in her little tricks? You want to enter the illusory god palace? An evil and lazy voice came from behind her. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that Jun Jiuqing had come up behind her. Her red lips curled into a smile. Who doesn't want to come here? However, unlike the family E, ordinary people are qualified to enter the illusory god palace as soon as they arrive. Jun Jiuqing lowered his head slightly and leaned closer. He looked into her eyes and smiled. Then I'll take you in? Chu Luiyue's brows furrowed quickly and then relaxed. The family E really knows how to joke. He could enter the illusory god palace. From a certain point of view, he was indeed powerful. But it would be a joke if he said that he could take others in. She raised her chin and her eyes fell on the people who came in behind him. If the family E is so capable, why don't you take them in? Jin Yunlai had made it clear that he was only allowed to go in by himself. The treatment was exactly the same as Nan Jinshu of the Nan family. Jun Jiuqing raised his eyebrows slightly. How can they compare to you? Soon after, he smiled and said, besides, if it's something you want to do, I won't joke around with you. If she really wanted to enter the illusory god palace, then he would take her in. Chu Luiyue's eyes flashed and her red lips curled into a perfect arc. She asked softly. The family E, who are you looking down on? She wanted to go in, but she didn't need to ask him for help. She didn't need to rely on anyone. One day she would be able to step into the illusory god palace openly. Jun Jiuqing looked at her, raised his hands and sighed softly. His voice was lazy and low with a hint of hoarseness. You've wronged me. I'll give you whatever you want. Can't I do that? Chu Luiyue tilted her head. If I want something, I'll take it myself. If I can't, I still have my husband. The family E, you're an outsider. You don't have to worry so much, right? Hearing the words, my husband, the smile on Jun Jiuqing's face instantly froze. A layer of coldness gradually surged from the bottom of his eyes. He looked at her quietly, but there was a hint of sharpness in his eyes. You shouldn't have chosen him. Chu Luiyue's expression also turned cold, but she soon found it funny. This is my business. What does it have to do with you? The family, you shouldn't waste your time on me. I won't appreciate it anyway. I might even backstab you. Let's say goodbye while I'm still in a good mood. If we continue to talk, blood will splatter on the spot and dirty the Elysium and the star path. That's not good. With that, she turned to leave. Jun Jiuqing looked at her back. He slowly clenched his hands behind his back. You'll know eventually that he's a lunatic. Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks. She didn't turn around. She just tilted her head and said calmly but firmly and stubbornly, even if he is, so what? Jun Jiuqing felt a lump in his throat. Since I've decided to be with him, I naturally believe in him and protect him. I've given all my heart and mind to him. As for the family E, there are so many women in the world. You can have whatever you want. Why are you always obsessed with me? That's all I have to say. The family E is on your own. With that, Chu Luiyue lifted her feet and left. A breeze blew, rolling up her black hair and skirt. Clear and bright but so far away. The last trace of a smile on Jun Jiuqing's face gradually faded. The figure quickly disappeared from his sight. After a long while, the people behind him exchanged glances. Finally they whispered, "Family head, we should go." Jun Jiuqing looked away. "You all know where to go." They immediately bowed and replied, "Yes." Jun Jiuqing took a deep breath and headed for the palace of the illusory god. Chapter 2249. Chu Liyue thought as she walked. The scene just now kept replaying in her mind, leaving her puzzled. There were so many people in the Divine Ruins world, but why were only Nanjing Shu and Jun Jiuqing able to enter the palace of the illusory god? In terms of talent, strength, and experience, there were others who were stronger than them. But Jin Yunlai only chose the two of them. Suddenly she thought of something. Rong Xiu once said that the status of the Nan family and Family Yi was higher than those first-rate families in the Divine Ruins world. This was because the ancestors of these two families had once followed the same person. And that person was related to the Battle of the Gods in the God-slaying tomb 10,000 years ago. In the past, she didn't pay much attention to this matter, but now that she thought about it, that person's identity seemed to be very important. Could it be related to the illusory god palace? Otherwise, it really couldn't explain Jin Yunlai's attitude towards them. Whoosh, the sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came. Chu Liyue subconsciously looked up and suddenly saw a lustrous light flying out of the palace of the illusory god, rushing in a certain direction. Her pupils shrank and her heart started to beat quickly, because that lustrous light was exactly the same as the light on the armillary shield. Almost in an instant she immediately guessed something. This light must have come from the black jade square in the palace of the illusory god. Her eyes stared at the light that was speeding away. Her figure moved and she did not hesitate to follow. At the same time, this movement attracted the attention of many people in the illusory god palace. Many people flew up and looked in the direction where the light was heading. Another divine artifact is about to appear? I wonder who succeeded this time. Who else can it be? The number of top blacksmiths in the illusory god palace can be counted with one's fingers. Looking in that direction, it's most likely Kong Qinglin, right? He has been a blacksmith venerable for many years, and now it's his turn to take another step. You can't say that. The illusory god palace is still the illusory god palace, but the palace of the illusory god is no longer the illusory god palace of the past. All sorts of discussions entered Chu Liyue's ears, causing her to frown. What do they mean by that? In the past it was very easy to refine saint artifacts, but now it was very difficult? The illusory god palace they were talking about was actually the Black Jade Plaza. This was because it was what determined whether or not one could successfully refine a saint artifact. Or perhaps, this change was related to the armillary heaven shield? She suppressed the guesses in her heart and followed the direction where the light fell. Finally she arrived in front of a courtyard. In the courtyard there were piles of all kinds of refining items everywhere. Looked messy. However, when Chu Liyue took a closer look, he realized that there were several venerable artifacts hidden inside. The venerable artifact, which was extremely precious in the eyes of others, was like trash in this place. It was casually thrown away and piled up with all kinds of other things. She glanced around and saw a few more king artifacts. She held her breath. Just the items placed in the courtyard alone would cause countless people to fight over them if they were placed outside. However, the middle-aged man standing in the middle of the courtyard didn't seem to care about it. At this moment, he was looking at a bell in his hand with a fervent and excited expression. The bell was only the size of a palm and was made of bronze. It was suffused with a faint blue color. There were strange patterns engraved on it, and one could vaguely feel the powerful pressure it emitted. Ah! It's finally done. The middle-aged man's voice was filled with undisguised excitement. Only the heavens knew how much he had sacrificed for this day. People came from all directions, but they all stopped outside the courtyard and didn't get any closer. Congratulations, congratulations. Brother Kong has successfully refined a saint artifact. In the future you will be a true refining saint. That's right. I've long said that Brother Kong's talent is outstanding and he's hardworking. He will definitely succeed. Now it's really as expected. Brother Kong, we will have to rely on you in the future. No matter what everyone thought, they had to be polite on the surface. Refining saints had extremely high positions in the illusory god palace. From now on, Kong Qinglin could be considered to have truly soared. Kong Qinglin laughed. Thank you, everyone. Chu Liyue's gaze paused on the bell in his hand for a moment. That aura was indeed very familiar. Why are you here? A voice came from the side. Chu Liwei turned her head and was a little surprised. Taizu? You're here too? Shengguan Jing laughed. I came over after sensing that someone was trying to refine a saint artifact here. It's been a while. But did you just come back from the treasure pavilion? Chu Liwei immediately understood. Taizu had been studying how to refine a venerable divine artifact. It was normal for him to rush over when he heard the commotion here. She nodded and didn't mention that she had met the Nan family and Family E at the Heavenly Gate. I originally planned to go back directly, but I saw something strange on the way here, so I followed. She paused and asked, Taizu, did you see something here? Shengguan Jing nodded and then shook his head. If you want to say it, I figured out something. But as for the specifics, I'm afraid it's very difficult to implement. You mean, did you see that streak of light just now? Chu Liwei nodded. That light came from the palace of the illusory god. Previously, I said that I always felt that something was missing when refining artifacts. Now I finally understand. It's missing that streak of light. Taizu's eyes flashed and he lowered his voice. This light is very similar to the aura contained in your shield. It was more than similar. Was the same. Chu Liwei lowered her eyes and fell into deep thought. However, even if you know this, it's useless. Look at the few beside him. They're also refining venerables. Don't they want to break through? But the key is that this matter isn't that simple. Shengguan Jing sighed. Although I saw how he refined this saint artifact, if it were me, I might not be able to succeed. Even now, he still couldn't figure out how that lustrous light had been summoned. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the crowd. Brother Kong, when you go to the palace of the illusory god in the future, don't forget about us. Kong Qinglin laughed heartily. Of course. Chu Liwei was stunned. Then she looked at a person not far away and asked, May I ask, after breaking through to the refining saint realm, one can enter the palace of the illusory god? That person was a little impatient, but when he turned around and saw that it was Chu Liwei, he revealed a look of surprise. Shengguan Yu? Chu Liwei nodded. That person's attitude immediately became much better and said, Well, you just came here not long ago, so it's normal that you don't know. In the illusory god palace, all refining saints are qualified to enter the palace of the illusory god. Chapter 2250. I see. Chu Liwei was deep in thought. Thank you. That person quickly waved his hand. You're welcome. Such a small matter is not worth mentioning. Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows. Shengguan Jing also glanced over in surprise. Strange. Why was this person so nice to them? Because they didn't have a bloodline totem, they were looked down upon in the illusion god palace. Speaking of which, I should thank Miss Shangguan instead. That person gave a thumbs up and said with admiration. If it weren't for you, we would still be worried about the herbs. So it was because of this. Chu Liwei suddenly remembered what Ji said before. After the herb mountain was completely opened, many people in the illusion god palace were very grateful to her. She didn't take it to heart at that time, but now, it seemed to be true. Kong Qinglin put away the bell, and with a tap of his foot, he headed in the direction of the illusory shrine. Countless pairs of eyes watched him leave. Envy, admiration, jealousy, emotion. In short, everyone had different thoughts. Chu Liwei suddenly thought of something and looked at Shengguan Jing. Taizu, let's go back first. I have something to discuss with you. What? You want to leave the illusion god palace? Shengguan Jing had just sat down when he heard Chu Liue's words and was shocked. Now? Yes. I want to go back to the Peach Blossom Cove, Chu Liwei said calmly. Why is that? Shengguan Jing couldn't figure it out. He subconsciously looked at the letter on Chu Liue's waist. The handwriting on it was as clear as before. In the short term, there was no need to worry about being kicked out of the illusion god palace. But now she actually said that she wanted to leave? Chu Liwei smiled and explained, I will come back. It's not that I won't return forever. My purpose this time is to invite Senior Tang Ku or Mr. Su to come. Shengguan Jing was stunned for a moment and suddenly understood something. Is it because of the artifact refining saint? Chu Liwei nodded. If a weapon refining saint could enter the illusory god palace, then Tang Ku or Su Li would definitely be able to come. In fact, with her current strength, it wouldn't be a problem for her to complete the star path and enter the illusory god palace. But that would take a long time. After all, there were too many Shen formations on the Star Road. Even though she had basically seen all of them, it was still extremely exhausting to decipher them one by one. If they could invite Tang Ku or Su Li over, then they could directly enter the illusory god palace. Ever since Dugu Mabao had cut off his connection with the purple scales, she had not been able to find out anything related to him. She was worried that if time dragged on, their situation would become even worse. If someone could enter the illusory god palace ahead of time, they might be able to find some clues. This was a matter of great importance, and this person had to be someone she could trust. In that case, it could only be these two. Sheng Guanjing knew that she was here to save someone, and it was very likely that the person was in the illusory god palace. It was no wonder that she would think that way. If everything goes well, that would be for the best. But I don't know if the illusory god palace allows people to enter and leave like this. Sheng Guanjing was most worried about this. What if Chu Luiyue was not allowed to enter again after leaving? Chu Luiyue was not worried about this. The opening of the illusory god palace's heavenly gate was to summon those top cultivators. No matter if it's Senior Tang Ku or Mr. Su, they are definitely qualified. The illusory god palace will definitely not reject them. As for me, you forgot that I'm still helping Precious Treasure Pavilion copy the Shen formations. Sheng Guanjing's eyes lit up. That's right. Look at me, I almost forgot about this. Precious Treasure Pavilion would definitely not let her leave before she finished copying the mysterious diagram of fire. If the seventh divine envoy did not allow her to come again, Precious Treasure Pavilion would definitely step in. Precious Treasure Pavilion will definitely protect you, but what kind of background do they have that even the divine envoys don't dare to offend them? Sheng Guanjing murmured. Chu Luiyue paused for a moment. No matter who it is, it's definitely a backer. This matter, it's settled. I'll leave little Hachi and the others to you when I'm not here. Sheng Guanjing laughed. Your subordinates are all very outstanding. They don't need me to watch over them. Not to mention Sin Yi and Shijing, even Chang Wanzhou had broken through to God Realm. As for Hua Shuangshuang and little Hachi, although they were not the top cultivators in terms of cultivation, they were not bad either. In short, there was really nothing to worry about these people. When Chu Luiyue heard this, she pursed her lips and smiled. You're an elder. With you around, you can restrain them a little. Sheng Guanjing stroked his beard emotionally. Hey girl, how did you choose the people of the 13th U back then? Any one of them could fight very well and none of them lost. Even that 13th U, although he's still young, is extremely talented. I remember that at that time, Dean Nen took a fancy to his talent and took the initiative to invite him to Lingxiao College to cultivate. This was not something that could be described with the word genius. In short, these people of the 13th U were all extremely outstanding. It was already very difficult for ordinary people to meet a few capable subordinates. But she had more than a dozen of them. And they were especially loyal to her and had been following her for so many years. Even Sheng Guanjing was amazed every time he thought of this. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes slightly. Actually, it's not that complicated. When I chose them back then, I didn't expect this day to come. She did not choose the 13th U all at once. Instead, she chose them one after another over nearly 10 years. And at that time she did not think too much about it. For example, when she met 13th U, he was still very young and could not do anything at all. But she just felt that this child was quite faithful, so she brought him back. Now that she thought about it, there were more coincidences and luck to be able to have this day. By the way, did Rong Xiu return to the Yuntian Tower previously? Yes. Then when you go back this time, go and ask him if he wants to come with us. With his talent, it shouldn't be a problem for him to ascend to the heavens and become a god. Sheng Guanjing instructed. After all, Rong Xiu came from the Yuntian Tower, so he was not worried about the bloodline totem. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly. I was planning to do that too. After making the decision, Chu Luiyue did not hesitate. After explaining to Sin Yi and the others, she left. Sin Yi originally wanted to accompany her, but he was rejected by Chu Luiyue. This kind of thing was a little risky to begin with. It would be troublesome to bring more people along. Thus, she headed towards the heavenly gate. When she arrived at the heavenly gate, there was no one there. Her footsteps did not stop as she walked out directly. However, before she could take a step, a barrier quickly appeared and blocked her path. At the same time, a cold voice was heard. Where are you going? Chapter 2251. Chu Luiyue turned around. The air shook and a tall figure gradually appeared. It was Jin Yunlai. His speed was really fast. Chu Luiyue thought, but his face revealed a faint smile. As you can see, I'm going out. Jin Yunlai's eyes were filled with suspicion. You're leaving the Illusion God Palace now? By yourself? Chu Luiyue knew that he had misunderstood and explained. No, I'm not. I'm only going back to the Peach Blossom Cove to pick up someone. I'll be back soon. Jin Yunlai was stunned at first, then he realized what Chu Luiyue was saying. His face turned green for a moment. What did you say? Chu Luiyue's smile remained unchanged. Don't worry, the person I invited this time is a refining saint. He has the qualifications to enter the Illusion God Palace. Not only the Illusion God Palace but the Illusion God Palace as well. But Jin Yunlai was even angrier when he heard this. Was that the main point? Wasn't the main point that she was too casual? Jin Yunlai's voice was stern. What do you think the Illusion God Palace is? You dare to leave without saying goodbye and even threaten to bring someone back. Sheng Guanyu, do you think this is your home? He had always been cold and arrogant, but he wasn't someone who was easily angered. This time he was really angered by Chu Luiyue. His face was ashen and his eyes were burning with rage. At the same time the pressure on his body rose rapidly. If Chu Luiyue didn't give him a satisfactory answer, he would immediately take action. Chu Luiyue's expression was magnanimous and sincere. Of course I know what kind of place the Illusion God Palace is. That's why I came here. Seventh Divine Emissary, was I not clear enough? The person I invited this time is a refining saint. Is such a person not qualified to come? Didn't you say that the Illusion God Palace's heavenly gate was open to attract the world's top cultivators? Jin Yunlai was about to die from anger. This woman was very eloquent and knew how to avoid the important points and dwell on the trivial. A weapon refining saint naturally has the right to come here, but Sheng Guanyu, is it your place to worry about this? You, of course. Chu Luiyue interrupted him with a smile and said softly, don't worry. I'm their savior. To be precise, she had only saved Su Li. However, Su Li was Tang Ke's life. To a certain extent, she did save the two of them. Jin Yunlai choked. To be honest, the reason they didn't come to the Illusory God Palace this time was to help me guard the Peach Blossom Dock. If I don't go back personally to invite them, I'm afraid they won't come. Seventh Divine Envoy, are you still going to stop me? Chu Luiyue said slowly. His tone was relaxed and gentle, and there was even a smile on his face. However, every word was like a thorn, making Jin Yunlai extremely uncomfortable. Chu Luiyue suddenly seemed to have thought of something. But Jun Jiuqing is already here. Do you really want to leave now? What if Jun Jiuqing took this opportunity to do something? Rong Xiu folded his sleeves and said indifferently, he wouldn't be so stupid as to behave so atrociously in the Illusory God Palace. Besides, his sword-like eyebrows rose slightly, and his peerlessly noble face seemed to be shrouded in a layer of illusory mist. I haven't accompanied you, for a long time. As soon as he finished speaking, the black flame in his left eye was finally extinguished. At the same time, the golden light in his right eye also disappeared. His pair of quiet and deep phoenix eyes returned to their original clean and clear appearance. Although Tsinyi is there won't be much trouble. But you still have to stay here and watch over her. After all, you are her people. If anyone dares to do it again, just deal with them. There's no need to report it to me. Umo immediately replied. Yes. But immediately, he thought of something and asked hesitantly, what's the matter? But, if it's the Divine Envoy, Rong Xiu's eyes were calm. It doesn't matter who is the Divine Envoy. Umo's heart skipped a beat. I understand. Chu Luiyue quickly returned to Peach Blossom Dock. Before he reached the entrance of the Yu Manor, Sanson, who had received the news, hurried out to welcome him. Master, you are finally back. Sanson was so excited that the flesh on his face trembled slightly, and his small eyes were filled with excitement. Then he was stunned and looked behind Chu Luiyue. Master, where are Big Brother and the others? Chu Luiyue said concisely. They are still in the Illusion God Palace. I am the only one who came back this time. She said as she walked in. Where are Senior Tang Ku and Mr. Su now? Sanson hurriedly said, they are both at Qingshui Cliff. Chu Luiyue stopped in his tracks. Why are they there? Because the two of them are refining. Sanson suddenly became spirited. You don't know, but during the time you were away, the two seniors refined many more venerable divine artifacts. There are also many weapon refiners who have been learning from them. The two seniors said that since they have nothing to do, they might as well find some fun. Chu Luiyue, the mindset of weapon refiner saints is indeed different. Go and ask them to come back. Tell them that I have something to discuss with them. Forget it, I will go over personally. Sanson was at a loss. What is it? Why are you in such a hurry? At this moment, a gentle and pleasant voice sounded. Little you, are you looking for me? Chu Luiyue turned around and saw Su Li walking over from not far away. Tang Ku was holding several divine artifacts and following beside her. It seemed that the two of them had just returned from refining. Chu Luiyue went forward to welcome them. Mr. Su, Senior Tang Ku. She looked at Su Li. Mr. Su, I came back this time to ask you to come with me to the Illusion God Palace and help me with something. Help? Illusion God Palace? Tang Ku and Su Li spoke at the same time, with some astonishment on their faces. Chu Luiyue looked at him with some astonishment. Senior Tang Ku, is there a problem? Chapter 2253. Tang Ku coughed. No, nothing. It's just that it's a little sudden. Master Yu, didn't you bring them to the Illusory God Palace? Why did you suddenly come back? Chu Luiyue said. It's a long story. Let's go in and talk. So you want me to go to the Illusory God Palace first to investigate? After listening to Chu Luiyue's explanation, Su Li finally understood. Chu Luiyue gently nodded. I know this trip is dangerous. I didn't want to trouble you, but... Su Li pursed her lips and smiled. Little Yu, my life was saved by you. What's this small favor? Besides, I owe those people a debt of gratitude. If I can help a little, it's also good. She knew that Chu Luiyue had only succeeded in strengthening her physical body because of those few people's pointers back then. Now that they were in trouble, she couldn't sit idly by. Actually, I wanted to go to the Illusory God Palace to take a look. Now it's just right. She wasn't lying. Who didn't want to go to the Illusory God Palace? It was just that she wanted to stay with Chu Luiyue to guard the Peach Blossom Cove, so she didn't do anything. Now that Chu Luiyue personally came back to invite her, there was no reason for her not to go. Chu Luiyue sighed in relief and her red lips curled into a grateful smile. Thank you, Master Su. The Illusory God Palace is mysterious and unfathomable. It's very likely to hide all kinds of secrets and dangers. Su Li's willingness to help made her feel more at ease. That's right. Little Yu, is it okay for you to come back? Su Li pointed. The Illusory God Palace should have strict rules, right? Even if she hadn't been there before, from what she saw, that kind of place shouldn't be casually entered and left. Chu Luiyue laughed. That's right. Originally, ordinary people couldn't casually enter and leave. But I told the seventh divine emissary that I came back this time to invite the weapon refining saint, so he agreed. At the same time, he also drove them away in anger. But that didn't matter. No matter how angry Jinyan Lai was, she would not find trouble with her over such a trivial matter. Refining saints were extremely respected figures in the Illusory God Palace. Su Li was relieved. That's good. Chu Luiyue turned his gaze and saw Tang Ku sitting in the chair beside him. She seemed to be in a daze. Senior Tang Ku, Senior Tang Ku? Chu Luiyue shouted twice to wake Tang Ku up. What happened? What do you think of the decision Mr. Su and I made? Chu Luiyue asked. Tang Ku valued Su Li so much, of course, it was better to ask for his opinion. However, Tang Ku's reaction was a little strange. Ever since he came in, he seemed to be a little unsettled. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be like this when it came to Su Li and the Illusory God Palace. What was he thinking just now? Tang Ku came back to her senses and looked at her, then at Su Li. I'm going too. However, I might be a little late. Tang Ku's fingers lightly tapped on the armrest as he spoke hesitantly. Chu Luiyue was dazed and surprised by this answer. She originally thought that Tang Ku would definitely go with them. Su Li also turned to look at him. Tang Ku, are you very busy? Tang Ku's eyes twitched. He also wanted to go with them. However, I'm not very busy. It's just that the Holy Sun left behind some things that need to be dealt with. Although it's not a big matter, it might take some time. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. She originally wanted to wait, but if it took a long time, since it's like this, little Yu, let's go first. Su Li thoughtfully looked at Tang Ku, then turned to Chu Luiyue. After all, those people's matters can't be delayed. If we can go earlier, we should go earlier. What do you say? Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment before responding. Then, it's decided. After settling this matter, the stone in Chu Luiyue's heart was finally put down. When Sansan saw this, she came over and asked eagerly, What's the matter? Master, do you still want to take some medicinal ingredients this time? Chu Luiyue smiled and waved his hand. No need. Sansan rubbed his hands. Then Little Hachi also doesn't want it? Little Hachi's medicinal ingredients had always been consumed very quickly. Previously, when they were in Peach Blossom Cove, she would come to rob him almost every few days. It wasn't that he was generous, but purely because he was used to being oppressed. Thinking that they had been in the illusory god palace for so long, Sanson guessed that little Hachi's stock should be almost used up. Chu Luiyue smiled. No need. The illusory god palace's herb mountain can now be freely entered and exited. Little Hachi will no longer be stopped. She can take whatever she wants. It's more convenient than here. She was very clear that every medicinal ingredient little Hachi took from Sanson was silently recorded by Sanson. Although little Hachi never paid cough. Sanson's small eyes widened. Herb mountain? Stopped? Master, what's going on? Is there someone bullying little Hachi? This won't do. No matter what, little Hachi had been spoiled by them for so many years. How could she be bullied? Chu Luiyue took a sip of tea. Don't worry. Do you think she's someone who will be bullied? Even the 8th Oracle was bullied by her. Didn't she get back at him later? Even now, Chu Luiyue still remembered how Shu Jing's face turned ashen when he was angered by little Hachi's words. Sanson heaved a sigh of relief. That's right. What's more, there's still Big Brother and the others. But what's the herb mountain that Master mentioned just now? Since the matter had been resolved, Chu Luiyue directly told Sanson everything that happened before. In short, after a fight with Liang He, I broke through to become a supreme doctor and refine the vitality-stabilizing pill. It was also because of this fight that the 8th Oracle was punished and no longer dared to occupy the herb mountain. The corner of Tang Ke's mouth twitched. She silently mourned for Shu Jing in her heart. Did her brain get flooded with water? Even if she didn't know Chu Luiyue's identity, she could at least tell from Zhen Bao Pavilion's attitude, right? How could she do such a stupid thing? She was really amazing. For the sake of that small piece of land in the herb mountain, she was really blind and deaf. Sanson, on the other hand, was very excited. Master, I knew you were the best. Ah, listen. She successfully refined the vitality-stabilizing pill on her first try and directly broke through to become a supreme doctor. What kind of talent was this? Was there a second one in the world? That guy called He or whatever, he really didn't think things through. He actually had the guts to fight with you? Chu Luiyue tilted her head. Liang He is the youngest supreme doctor in the entire Illusion God Palace. He can be considered young and promising. Also, his attitude is not bad. At this point, she couldn't help but laugh. Of course, this might be mainly because he's chasing little Hachi. Yin Qing, who had just received the news, stopped in her tracks. They were as clear and clean as ice, and they glowed with a faint cold light. There was a careless smile on his lips, and his eyes were flirtatious. Your Highness, long time no see. Jian Fengqi? Chu Luiyue was pleasantly surprised. She hadn't seen Jian Fengqi in a long time. However, Jian Fengqi didn't seem to have changed much from before, but the aura around him was much stronger than before. Clearly, he had also broken through to the great god level. Didn't you go to Lingxiao College? Why are you here? Jian Fengqi sighed. Although the college is good, Your Highness isn't here. There's no point in staying here. Chu Luiyue laughed. It had been so long, but a certain someone was still as flirtatious as before. It seems that I should be glad that the senior and junior sisters of Lingxiao College didn't suffer from your scourge. Jian Fengqi clicked his tongue. Your Highness, you've wronged me. After I went to the college, I was really focused on cultivation. I didn't even leave the house much. Seeing how serious he was, Chu Luiyue's interest was piqued. Oh. Jian Fengqi smiled slightly proudly. To tell you the truth, Your Highness, I've already broken through to the level of a master doctor. When can we spar again? Sure, Chu Luiyue said calmly. I just broke through to the level of a master doctor, and I'm looking for someone to spar with. Jian Fengqi stumbled and the smile on his face froze. He looked at her in horror. Master doctor? Didn't you say you're a master doctor? He had already done his research before coming here. Chu Luiyue nodded. Yes, I was indeed a master doctor before. Didn't I say that I just broke through? Jian Fengqi, there was nothing more shocking than this. God knew how much he had suffered in order to catch up with her. He had read countless medical books in Lingxiao College and tried countless times. There were a few times when he was almost forced to steal herbs from the Medicine Wind Valley, and he was almost caught and beaten by the elders. In the end, this was it. He had worked so hard to break through to the level of a master doctor, and was just about to spar with Chu Luiyue, but in the blink of an eye, she became a master doctor? Jian Fengqi felt his heart ache. He clutched his heart and took a few steps back. Just forget what I said just now. No, just forget that I was here at all. As he spoke, he turned to leave. He couldn't stay here any longer. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly remembered something and stopped in his tracks. Chu Luiyue looked at him with a half-smile. Why did you stop? Jian Fengqi opened his bone fan and covered half of his face, only revealing his blue eyes, which glowed brightly. By the way, Your Highness, is Hongyu with you? Chu Luiyue shook her head. No. Previously, Mu Hongyu had been in the Yuntian Tower. After taking down Peach Blossom Dock, Chu Luiyue thought that she would return, but she didn't. Later, she returned to the Yuntian Tower with Rong Xiao and found out that Mu Hongyu was in seclusion and hadn't come out for a long time. She didn't disturb her. She should still be in the Yuntian Tower. Why are you looking for her? Jian Fengqi's eyes twitched. Your Highness, have you forgotten something? Her contract is still with me. She ran away all of a sudden. Who wouldn't look for her? Chu Luiyue looked at him with a half-smile. Why are you in such a hurry to look for her? You've never been short of servants anyway. Moreover, Snapper wouldn't be able to do such a thing. After all, Mu Hongyu was a princess. Although she couldn't be compared to Jian Fengqi, who was the young master of Dragon Teeth Mountain, she had been doted on since she was young. Besides, she was lively and carefree. Now that she was focused on cultivation, she wouldn't care about these things. Jian Fengqi's hands trembled slightly. Your Highness, even if you're on her side, isn't this too much? I've been refining medicine with you for so many years. Can't you be biased towards me? Chu Luiyue said, Oh. Then I'll give you the money and you'll give me the contract? Jian Fengqi immediately took a step back. No way. Chapter 2255. What's wrong with that? If you really don't want the money, I'll give it to you. Or give you a few times more. Anyway, money was the last thing she needed now. Jian Fengqi tightened his grip on the fan in his hand. I just can't. Chu Luiyue leaned back in his chair leisurely. I told you to relax and let her be, but you didn't want to. I told you to buy Hongyu's contract, but you didn't want to either. Then what do you want to do? Jian Fengqi, you're so hard to please. No wonder Hongyu ran away. She glanced at Jian Fengqi. I heard that you've been looking for Hongyu for a long time. If you have the time and energy, why don't you do something else? Jian Fengqi snorted softly. Your Highness, you know best how I treat her. She has never been wronged by me. Anyway, he had to find her. Chu Luiyue suddenly said, Hongyu? Jian Fengqi was stunned. What? Chu Luiyue pointed behind him. Jian Fengqi turned around. Outside the courtyard, ripples suddenly appeared in the void. Following that, a figure fell out from it and crashed headfirst into a stone pillar nearby. Bang. Ouch, it hurts. Mu Hongyu held her head and gasped. She had been very careful, but she still hit it. Jian Fengqi was stunned. There was only one sentence left in his mind. What does it mean to search high and low only to find it by chance? Isn't this what it means? As soon as he thought of this, he subconsciously walked over. Mu Hongyu fell to the ground and rubbed her forehead. Just as she got up, she suddenly sensed someone approaching from behind. Without thinking, she threw a punch. Jian Fengqi reacted quickly and immediately dodged. At the same time, he grabbed her wrist and raised his eyebrows. Yo, we haven't seen each other in so long and you're giving me a greeting gift? Mu Hongyu was shocked. She quickly turned around and her almond-shaped eyes widened. Jian Fengqi, why are you here? Looking at her shocked face, Jian Fengqi ground his teeth. This young master is waiting for you here. Looking at his fierce look, Mu Hongyu shrunk her neck guiltily. Jian Fengqi originally wanted to hold her down and teach her a lesson, but when he saw the bump on her forehead, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Mu Hongyu waited for a long time. She thought that he was going to make a move, but he did nothing. What happened to your injury? Jian Fengqi asked, trying to suppress the fire. Mu Hongyu was at a loss. What injury? Seeing that Jian Fengqi's eyes were burning with anger again, she came back to her senses and pointed to her forehead. Oh, you mean this? I hit that rock just now. Jian Fengqi took a deep breath. If it weren't for his good self-control, he would have pried open her brain to see what was inside. How old are you? How can you get this kind of injury? Mu Hongyu was a little embarrassed. I've been trying to break through recently and I accidentally lost control. Jian Fengqi was stunned. Chu Luiyue had already walked over. Hongyu. Seeing Chu Luiyue, Mu Hongyu felt as if she had seen her savior. Luyu, I finally see you. Chu Luiyue glanced at Jian Fengqi. Jian Fengqi snorted in his heart, but he still let go of her. Mu Hongyu walked up to Chu Luiyue in a few steps. Luyu, I have something important to tell you. Chu Luiyue looked at her anxious expression and felt a little strange. What's wrong? Tell me slowly. Mu Hongyu asked nervously. Did something happen to Master? Digression, this is February when Kavinka is bald and every word is like a blunt knife being sharpened. Speaking of which, I feel that the comment section is really full of spoilers. Of course, the current speculation is not the ending of February, ha ha ha. Chapter 2256. The master that Mu Hongyu was referring to was Diwu Zhangzi. Chu Liyue's heart sank. Why do you ask? Mu Hongyu furrowed her brows. I encountered some problems in my cultivation, so I wanted to go back to the Red Moon Desert to find master. However, when I got there, I found that it was completely sealed off by a crimson barrier and I couldn't get close at all. I tried many ways but I couldn't get in, so I came back to find you. The Red Moon Desert had undergone a huge change, so the people inside were probably in danger. Also, I was able to contact Master before, but it's completely cut off now. This was what Mu Hongyu was most worried about. Diwu Zhangzi treated her very well, and he wouldn't have done that if he hadn't encountered something. Chu Liyue pursed her lips. It's a long story, but Senior Diwu and the others are indeed no longer in the Red Moon Desert. She raised her hand and pointed at the silver bridge that hung in the distant sky. Now they're all there. Mu Hongyu had been in seclusion for a long time, so she didn't know much about what was happening outside. After listening to Chu Liyue's explanation, she finally understood. In other words, Master and the others are now imprisoned in the illusory god palace? Mu Hongyu murmured in shock. Chu Liyue's eyes flashed with hesitation. Dugu Mabao was now trapped in the illusory god palace, so there was no mistake about it. However, Diwu Zhangzi was most likely suppressed under that strange and dangerous sea. As for Lan Xiao, there was no news at all, so she wasn't sure. But in the end she didn't say this. Everything was unknown, so it was better to be cautious. Then, Liu, I'll go with you this time. Mu Hongyu grabbed her hand. Coincidentally, I've recently broken through, so I should be qualified to go in, right? Chu Liyue was a little stunned. You've broken through? Mu Hongyu's aura was still that of her exalted god, not a venerable god. I'm not talking about the cultivation of martial artists. I'm talking about my void body. Speaking of this, Mu Hongyu was very happy. Originally, I went to look for master because I was stuck there and couldn't break through. But I didn't expect that I would stumble upon the right path and successfully break through. Really? Chu Liyue did not know much about the physique of the void. After all, in the entire Divine Ruins world, not many cultivators with the physique of the void had appeared in the past 1,000 years. Diwu Zhangzi was an exception. Mu Hongyu nodded. Liu, do you know where I came from this time? Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely guessed something. Mirror Lake. Mu Hongyu didn't wait for her to guess. She couldn't wait to say the answer. Her eyes were shining with excitement. Chu Liyue was shocked. You directly crossed the sky curtain? Yes. Mu Hongyu nodded vigorously. Because I just broke through, and this is also my first time trying, there are still many areas that are not perfect. In the end, I couldn't control it well, so I was injured. However, I should be fine after practicing a few more times. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone present fell into deep shock. The sky curtain fell from the sky to distinguish the inside and outside of the Divine Ruins world. Other than the gate realm, cultivators could not pass through any other way. But now, Mu Hongyu actually said that she came directly? This meant that she no longer needed to rely on the gate realm to freely enter and exit the Divine Ruins world. Chu Liyue suddenly remembered that a new gate realm had appeared some time ago, and it had attracted countless families and clans in the Divine Ruins world to compete for it. But now, compared to Mu Hongyu, what was there to compete for? It was hard to imagine how powerful Mu Hongyu's control of space had become. Seeing that Chu Liyue did not speak for a long time, Mu Hongyu spoke again. Liu, don't worry. Although I can only go in and out by myself now, after a long time, I will be able to bring others with me when I increase my strength. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and gave Mu Hongyu a thumbs up. Hongyu, you are really amazing. No wonder Diwu Zhangzi was so happy to accept Mu Hongyu as his disciple when he heard that she had the body of the void. This kind of constitution. How could the word talent be enough to describe it? Even she, who was now a god and whose strength surpassed many cultivators who were also gods, did not dare to hope that she could ignore the gate realm and enter and exit the sky curtain freely. At the side, Jian Fengqi's lips twitched harshly, and the carefree attitude he had when he first came was completely gone. He only felt that he was very miserable now. It was fine that he could not defeat Chu Liyue. After all, he had not won much in all these years. But the point was, how did Mu Hongyu ascend directly? With this kind of insane strength, who knew how many people would be jealous of her? He recalled that he had pulled her aside and almost criticized her. Jian Fengqi felt a headache coming on. Why were the people around Chu Luiwei all so insane? There were so many insane people, but why was he not one of them? As if sensing his sad gaze, Chu Luiwei turned around. Jian Fengqi, what did you just say? You want to take Hongyu away? She smiled faintly. With the current situation, can you take her away? No wonder Jian Fengqi could not keep up with Mu Hongyu for such a long time. With Mu Hongyu's ability to control space at will, how could Jian Fengqi be her opponent? Swoosh. Jian Fengqi opened his fan and fanned himself. Mu Hongyu asked, "Are you feeling hot?" Jian Fengqi replied, "No, but I want to be alone." He wanted to turn around and leave even more than before. However, this person was right there and he really could not move. Therefore he could only stand there and suffer. Chu Luiwei looked at his rare frustrated expression and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. In fact, Jian Fengqi's talent as a celestial physician was definitely better than many people. Otherwise, she would not have agreed to his challenges time and time again when they were in Tianling. Although Jian Fengqi always lost, he did not lose by too much each time. This was very rare. Moreover, at his age he was able to become a master physician. Even in the Consonance Academy he was definitely outstanding to be able to do so. Even if he was compared to the geniuses of the first-rate families in the Divine Ruins, he would not lose at all. However, what was more unfortunate was that he was comparing himself to her and Mu Hongyu. Needless to say, Mu Hongyu had the body of the void, and there might not even be 1 in a million people. Those who could successfully cultivate to this level were even rarer. It was no wonder that he was so hurt. However, as long as he was given time he would continue to improve in the end. Chu Luiwei even secretly felt that Jian Fengqi's talent as a celestial physician was not inferior to Liang He's. Thinking of this she said, "Jian Fengqi, come with us." Chapter 2257. Jian Fengqi snapped out of his daze. Where to? Illusion God Palace? Chu Luiwei nodded. Yes. Jian Fengqi's expression flickered. He had witnessed the opening of the Illusion God Palace's heavenly gate. It would be a lie if he said he didn't want to go. Besides, Mu Hongyu would obviously go as well. He nodded without any hesitation. Okay. Chu Luiwei sized him up and smiled. There are plenty of herbs on Illusion God Palace's herb mountain, enough for you to use. You can take this opportunity to become a supreme doctor as soon as possible. It won't be too late to compete with me then. Jian Fengqi's chest tightened at the mention of this. He couldn't afford to offend her. Just like that, Chu Luiwei decided to go with them. She looked at Yanqing. Yanqing, is your master still at Yintian Tower? Counting the time, it has been about a month. I wonder if Rong Xiu's matters have been settled. Yanqing paused. Before she could say anything, a strange fluctuation came from afar. Chu Luiwei looked back and saw a man slowly walking toward her from the sky. He was wearing snow-white clothes, a tall figure and a handsome face. It was Rong Xiu. He came from the horizon. He looked like he was taking a stroll, but his speed was extremely fast. The spacious space seemed to shrink under his feet. He covered 100 miles with a single step. In the blink of an eye, he was already above the Yu Manor. He was heading toward Chu Luiwei. Before the crowd could even see his movements clearly, he was already right in front of them. What a crowd! Rong Xiu's gaze quickly swept across the people in the courtyard. His thin, scarlet lips curved. Looks like I came at the right time. Chu Luiwei stepped forward and sized him up carefully. After making sure that he was fine, she let out a sigh of relief. During this period of time, the entire Divine Ruins world was in constant turmoil. The incomplete and mysterious black divine body had already turned several places upside down, including the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix clan. She couldn't help but worry. While Rong Xiu was away, she had been worried that the Yuntian Tower would be a target. Fortunately, looking at calmly Xiu's state, everything seemed to be fine. Are you worried about me? Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. Chu Luiwei shook her head, then nodded. Rong Xiu was very strong. Even until now, she had yet to find out his true abilities. Logically, she knew that she did not need to worry about Rong Xiu. It was just that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, so they missed each other. What's more, now that the heavenly gates of the Illusory God Palace had opened, the entire Divine Ruins world was in an extremely unstable state. Suddenly her eyes narrowed. Rong Xiu, your strength seems to have increased a lot? Although Rong Xiu didn't deliberately show it, she could still feel it when she stood close to him. Rong Xiu laughed. Isn't this normal? As a cultivator, as long as he continued to absorb the energy of heaven and earth and convert it into his own divine power, he would naturally be able to increase his strength. Chu Luiyue still felt that it was a little strange. But this change didn't seem to be a small one. How long had it been since the last time he left? Rong Xiu smiled and let her size him up. After a while, Chu Luiyue could only sigh helplessly. Forget it, there's always someone better. Every time she thought that her strength had improved and that she could compete with Rong Xiu, she would find that he had also improved. Even if he didn't seem to spend much time on cultivation, he would always be able to leave her in the dust. The two of them had known each other for many years. She should have been used to it. Is everything okay at the Yuntian Tower? She changed the topic. Rong Xiu shook his head. It's fine. Chu Luiyue was relieved and smiled. That's great. Come with us to the Yuntian Palace. Hearing this, Rong Xiu's deep phoenix eyes seemed to flash with a dark light. Yan Qing, who was standing next to him, also immediately looked over. Tang Ke put his hands behind his back, coughed, and looked at the sky. After a while, Rong Xiu asked, "You want me to go with you?" Chu Luiyue nodded. "Yes. I came back this time to ask Mr. Su for help. On the other hand, I wanted to see how you were doing. Since you're done, then, isn't it just right to go with me?" With Rong Xiu's bloodline and talent, ascending to the heavens and becoming a god was almost within reach. Seeing that Rong Xiu didn't immediately agree, Chu Luiyue was a bit confused. You don't want to go? Countless cultivators in the world yearned for the Yuntian Palace. Why did it seem that he didn't care about Rong Xiu? After a while, Rong Xiu said, "Okay, I'll go with you." Deep in the Thunder Pool, forbidden area. Yizhao's eyes were closed and his breath was weak. Only the sound of the collisions in the Tianlai reminded him where he was at the moment. Ever since he was trapped here, he couldn't see the sun. Every minute and every second was extremely unbearable. He almost couldn't remember how long he had spent here. Yizhao. Mu Dongyu's voice came from the front. Yizhao didn't move as if he didn't hear it. Mu Dongyu didn't mind. He knew that Yizhao could hear everything. Even if he was half dead, he was still the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. His vitality was extremely tenacious. You still refuse to surrender? Mu Dongyu questioned. Do you know that you're just asking for trouble? If you were half as smart as Yi Gong, you wouldn't have fallen to such a state. Hearing Yi Gong's name, Yizhao finally opened his eyes slowly. That pair of eyes that had experienced the vicissitudes of life and were suffused with the color of blood were filled with undisguised anger at being betrayed. He deserves to die. Yizhao spoke with difficulty. His voice was rough and hoarse. If not for him, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan wouldn't have been defeated so quickly. As for him, he wouldn't be locked up here without any preparation at all. Mu Dongyu looked at him condescendingly. I know that to you, Yi Gong betrayed the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. But have you ever thought that maybe he's right? 10,000 years have passed. The current palace of the illusory god has changed. Yizhao, if you really care about the lives of the hundreds of clansmen of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, you should lower your head and make the choice you should. Mu Dongyu was actually quite patient. Ever since Yizhao was trapped here, he had held similar negotiations several times. What's the point of holding on like this? Yizhao sneered. Yi Gong is already one of your people. Why are you so obsessed with me? Mu Dongyu's mouth twitched. He's only opened his 6th meridian. Naturally, he can't be compared to you. Yizhao closed his eyes and didn't say anything else. Seeing that his attitude was still firm, Mu Dongyu finally changed the topic. I heard that the young master of your clan has the purest bloodline? Yizhao's heart skipped a beat. Chapter 2258. Yizhao clenched his fists tightly. Mu Dongyu continued. Pure bloodline. This is the same as the ancestor of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. In time, she will definitely be able to break through the 9th meridian. Yizhao, if you can persuade her to surrender, I promise that your Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's past crimes will be forgiven. Even if it's not for yourself, you have to think about your clansmen, right? How long do you think you can seal them in the Phoenix God Mountain? The bloodline power in your body is almost depleted. After a while, the barrier will collapse on its own without us doing anything. At that time, won't the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan still be in trouble? Mu Dongyu stared at Yizhao. After a long time, Yizhao finally sneered. His voice was cold and sarcastic. When has the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan ever committed any crimes? You know best in your hearts who is in the wrong. Mu Dongyu's face darkened. He warned in a deep voice. Yizhao, However, Yi Zhao didn't seem to hear the anger and warning in his words. Or perhaps he didn't care at all. The choice made by our ancestor is also the choice made by our entire clan. Mu Dongyu, there are some things that you can do that our Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan will never do. I advise you to save your energy. Don't waste your breath on this useless nonsense. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many times you repeat it, my answer will never change. Any more words will only make me feel that you are more ridiculous. Mu Dongyu's expression was cold as he waved his hand. Whoosh, the black chains wrapped around Yi Zhao began to tremble violently, emitting ice-cold clanging sounds. Yi Zhao's body shuddered. He was trembling slightly due to the intense pain. A stream of faint reddish-gold blood slowly flowed out from the wound on his wrist and spread along the chain. The thick smell of blood gradually spread out. The surrounding golden Tianlei seemed to have sensed something and became restless. Mu Dongyu snorted and they gradually calmed down. Then, a ball of blood the size of a longan gradually condensed in front of Mu Dongyu. Within the ball of blood, there was a wisp of pure gold that flickered with a faint light. Mu Dongyu glanced at it and frowned. Although Yi Zhao was the clan leader and had opened his 7th meridian, he had been trapped here for so long that no matter how much bloodline power he had, there would come a time when he would be exhausted. Compared to the initial situation, the bloodline power in this blood mass was much more diluted. It was not even 1/5 of the original. Qi Zhao let out a soft chuckle. If you really have the ability, just kill me. Stubborn. Gritting her teeth, Mu Dongyu put away the ball of blood and turned to leave. This Yi Zhao was indeed a tough nut to crack. It had been so long but they still couldn't persuade him. They didn't even show any signs of relenting. As for Yi Gong, although he was obedient, he was a traitor and couldn't be put in an important position. If Yi Gong had opened his 7th meridian he could be considered. Unfortunately, Mu Dongyu walked forward. Wherever he passed, the surrounding Tianlei quickly made way. After a while he came to a certain place and suddenly stopped. He turned his head to look. A man was standing not far away, holding a hammer in his hand and knocking on a reef from time to time. Thump thump, thump thump. Mu Dongyu was already in a bad mood. Hearing this sound she became even more irritated. Who is it? She shouted in a deep voice. Mitsui was originally focused on investigating the situation inside the reef and didn't notice someone approaching. Hearing the sound he suddenly woke up and looked back. You are? Mitsui's eyes quickly scanned the other party and suddenly understood. The 4th Divine Envoy? Mu Dongyu frowned. Who are you? What are you doing here? Mitsui cupped his fists. I'm Mitsui. I'm here today to use the power of Tianlei here to temper my divine body. Mu Dongyu stared at him suspiciously. His appearance just now was indeed a little strange. Mitsui looked up and asked tentatively. May I ask, 4th Divine Envoy, can I not come here? He had already heard from his master that the depths of the lightning pool was a forbidden area and was not to be casually approached. Therefore he only stayed at the edge of the pool. There shouldn't be anything wrong with that, right? Mu Dongyu didn't say anything. She looked at him coldly. Or, did I do something wrong just now? Although Mitsui was usually bold and boorish, he was very cautious. Otherwise, Tsunyi wouldn't have specially chosen him to stay in the mystic forest. After a moment of silence, Mu Dongyu said, It's nothing. Actually, many people entered the lightning pool. There were all kinds of people. It wasn't that he hadn't seen them before. What Mitsui had done was nothing compared to what many people had done. It was just that he happened to be in a bad mood. Seeing Mitsui's serious and honest expression, the doubts in Mu Dongyu's heart gradually disappeared. She moved and went into the distance. Mitsui watched her leave until she was out of sight. Then he slowly let out a sigh. Soon after, he turned back to look at the rugged reefs with some doubt. TSK. This 4th Divine Envoy doesn't seem to know the secret here. Didn't he say that he was in charge of the lightning pool? He didn't even know this? Mitsui scratched his head. He vaguely felt that something was wrong. On the other side, little Hachi was fiddling with medicine in her room. A rich medicinal fragrance wafted out of the room, almost filling the entire courtyard. Hua Shuangshuang and Tsunyi were sitting opposite each other in the courtyard. Noticing the commotion, Hua Shuangshuang looked in that direction strangely. Big brother, what's wrong with little Hachi? Why is she so diligent in her cultivation these days? Ever since her master left, she had been hugging countless medicinal herbs and plunging into her room. She hadn't come out until now. With little Hachi's personality, this was really strange. Tsunyi's expression was indifferent. He didn't even lift his eyelids. Master has already broken through to senior doctor, but she's still a senior doctor. It doesn't sound good if word gets out. Little Hachi usually seemed lively, but when it came to important matters she was still clear-headed. Now that she was about to be left far behind, she naturally worked hard. Hua Shuang immediately understood. No wonder. Suddenly the cry of a magical beast came from afar. Hua Shuang looked up and saw a golden-winged crow-bone beast flying over. It looked like an eagle or a vulture. Its entire body was black except for a pair of dark golden wings. Under the sunlight they shone faintly. Hua Shuang focused her eyes and saw that there was a tear on its wing. Blood was flowing out and even the white bone could be seen. Its eyes were filled with deep fear. Behind it, a half-folded condor was rapidly approaching. Chapter 2259. From the looks of it, the two divine beasts had just engaged in a fierce battle. The golden-winged raven bone beast was no match for it and fled. However, the half-folded divine vulture, which had the upper hand, refused to let it go and chased after it. The two divine beasts were actually of the same level. But for some reason the half-folded divine vulture was exceptionally ferocious and emitted a dense, cold aura. Its indifferent and ferocious eyes flickered with a bloodthirsty light, as well as a hint of mockery. Its speed was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Every time the golden-winged raven bone beast felt that it was about to successfully escape, it would suddenly speed up, but when it was about to catch up, it would slow down again. There were many times when the golden-winged raven bone beast wanted to give up, but the other party would give it a glimmer of hope, causing it to flee with all its might. But it was also very clear that it couldn't escape the other party's pursuit. After running for so long, it had always been within the other party's hunting range. This caused the golden-winged raven bone beast's mental state to become tense and on the verge of collapse. Seeing this scene, Hua Shuang frowned and a trace of disgust flashed across her face. The half-folded divine vulture is doing this on purpose. The weak are prey to the strong. This was a principle that everyone understood. Among the magical beasts, this was even more vividly reflected. However, the half-folded divine vulture was toying with an opponent that had already been defeated by its claws. It was truly vile. He stood up, curled two fingers on his right hand, placed them in his mouth and blew a whistle. Hearing this melodious and resonant whistle, the golden-winged raven bone beast subconsciously looked over. Then, without any hesitation, it flew straight towards Hua Shuang. Although it was currently injured, it had already been forced to the brink of collapse by the half-folded divine vulture. At this moment, it was using all of its remaining strength. There was even a thin layer of black flames burning on the dark golden wings. Hua Shuang raised her arm, and the golden-winged raven bone beast fell head first towards her. Screech, it let out a low, mournful cry. Its aura was already extremely weak, and it relied on its last bit of willpower to grab onto Hua Shuang's arm. Hua Shuang lowered her eyes and glanced at it, her brows furrowed even more tightly. She took out a pill with her other hand and fed it. Without even looking at it, the golden-winged raven bone beast directly swallowed it. If anyone else saw this scene, they would definitely feel extremely shocked. Demonic beasts were vigilant by nature and were naturally hostile to humans. This was especially true for divine beasts who were alert. They would not easily trust humans. However, at this moment, this golden-winged crow-bone beast directly flew over to Hua Shuang's side, and without the slightest hesitation ate the food he gave it. It didn't seem to be worried that Hua Shuang would take the opportunity to harm it. Instead, it trusted her with its life. This was truly strange. A dark and cold murderous intent flashed across the eyes of the half-broken Shin vulture when it saw this. Just as it was about to continue forward, Cini suddenly looked up. His face was calm, and his narrow and indifferent eyes were as deep as the sea, making him unfathomable. An indescribable invisible pressure surged out of his body. The half-broken god vulture finally stopped when it noticed danger, and then a strand of deep fear and terror had inexplicably surged from the bottom of its heart. This place must not be approached. However, it was really unwilling to give up on the food that was already in its mouth. In order to take down this golden-winged skeletal beast, it had spent a great deal of effort. But now, it was all for naught. It paced back and forth outside the courtyard, unwilling to approach but also unwilling to leave. Hua Shuang glanced at the golden-winged crow-bone beast lying on his arm. When he sensed that its aura was gradually stabilizing, his expression relaxed slightly. Then he looked at Cini. "Big brother, I really don't like this half-broken god vulture," Cini said indifferently. "This is something from Jun Jiuqing. It's normal that you don't like it." Hua Shuang was stunned. He turned around to take a look and only then did he understand. I see. I knew there were many different types of energy mixed within its body. He had heard of Jun Jiuqing's name before. This person didn't have a contract with any magical beasts, but he kept many of them by his side. Moreover, he liked to let them fight and kill each other. Only the strongest one would become his favorite. However, this was usually a short period of time. Once a better one appeared, he would immediately switch to another. The reason why this half-broken god vulture's energy was mixed was because it had devoured too many different types of magical beasts. Of course, there might also be humans among them. Wait, why is Jun Jiuqing's divine beast here? Sun Yi's expression didn't change. Of course, it's because he's here too. He's here? Hua Shuang was about to say something when he suddenly saw a figure slowly walking toward them. I was wondering why you didn't come back after so long. So you came here. A lazy and evil voice sounded. It was Jun Jiuqing. Hearing this voice, the half-broken god vulture's eyes suddenly flashed with deep fear. It had been with Jun Jiuqing for a long time, so it could naturally hear the dense impatience and annoyance in his voice. It folded its wings and lowered its head slightly. Jun Jiuqing didn't even look at it. Instead, his eyes fell on Sun Yi. Their eyes met. At this moment, even the surrounding air seemed to have frozen. But after a while, Jun Jiuqing shifted his gaze and looked at Hua Shuang and the golden-winged crow-bone beast on his arm. This was originally a little toy sent by the second divine envoy, but it seems that you are very interested in it. Since that's the case, I'll give it to you as a gift. Hua Shuang frowned. Why did Jun Jiuqing's words sound like he had a close relationship with the second divine envoy? Based on her previous experience, these divine envoys were all extremely arrogant. But now they were treating Jun Jiuqing so politely. A divine beast was given away just like that? Who didn't know that this was to be fed to his half-broken god vulture? Even if the golden-winged crow-bone beast couldn't be compared to the two ancient divine beasts, it was still a respectable existence among the divine beasts. She really didn't know what the second divine envoy was thinking. Oh right, I heard that she went back? Jun Jiuqing sighed softly as his slender fingers brushed past his eyebrows. Seems like she went back to invite the artifact refining saint over? Probably to enter the palace of the illusory god. Actually, I said before that I could bring her in, but unfortunately she wasn't willing. She just had to go through so much trouble. Hua Shuang snorted. What does what my master wants to do have to do with you? Patriarchy, you should focus more on yourself. Jun Jiuqing's gaze turned even colder, but his lips still held a smile and his sword-like eyebrows raised slightly. I just think that she's too stupid to seek something far away. Family. Sun Yi suddenly stood up. Chapter 2260. The smile on Jun Jiuqing's face finally faded. He stared at Sun Yi for a while, then turned to leave without saying anything. The half-folded divine vulture quickly followed. Seeing their figures gradually disappear into the distance, Hua Shuang frowned and looked at Sun Yi. Big brother, who exactly is that Jun Jiuqing? He seems to be quite familiar with these divine envoys. This kind of treatment was much better than what they had received. Sun Yi said, of course it's Family Yi's head. Hua Shuang suddenly understood something. You mean Family Yi? Boom. A powerful energy wave suddenly came from the room. The two of them turned to look. Bang. The door was violently opened by this shocking force, and a thick cloud of white smoke spread out from inside. Immediately after, little Hachi hurriedly ran out. Cough cough cough, cough cough. As little Hachi ran, she kept waving her hands trying to disperse the smoke. When she finally reached the center of the courtyard, she was finally able to catch her breath. That scared me to death. Little Hachi supported herself on the stone table with one hand and patted her chest with the other. Little Hachi, what's wrong? Hua Shuang had just taken a step forward when little Hachi happened to raise her head, and his heart jumped in fright. For some reason, little Hachi's face was smeared with several streaks of black ash. Her eyes were filled with tears from the smoke, and she looked extremely pathetic. Hua Shuang's mouth twitched. Little Hachi, what did you do? Are you going to tear down the room? Little Hachi shook her head pitifully. What? I just wanted to see if I could refine a supreme doctor-level pill, and I accidentally ended up like this. Hua Shuang sighed. You can't rush this kind of thing. You've always been very talented. Take it slow and you'll succeed. Little Hachi shook her head. Second brother, you misunderstood. I've already refined it. As she spoke, she took out a tattered box. It's just that the medicinal pill contained too much power. My medicinal cauldron couldn't withstand it and exploded just like that. Even this box was blown apart. Her heart ached. This is a jade box that I chose after looking at it for a full 6 hours. It was originally used to store the first senior doctor level pill that I refined. Who knew that something like this would happen? Heavens knew that when that medicinal cauldron exploded, her little heart was really thumping wildly. Hua Shuangshuang opened her eyes wide. She looked at the jade box and didn't say anything for a long time. Sun Yi, on the other hand, reached out to take the item and opened it for a look. Although the jade box was shattered, the medicinal pills inside were still in good condition. White and green intertwined. Although the colors were a little mixed, the power was still considered pure. Most importantly, this was indeed a senior doctor level pill. This also meant that little Hachi had officially broken through to Supreme Doctor. Just put up with it. Sun Yi took a few glances and returned the item to little Hachi. I'll get you a better medicinal cauldron later. There won't be a next time. Hua Shuangshuang looked at him as if she was looking at a pervert. Little Hachi had broken through to Supreme Doctor so quickly. If this was outside, who knew how many people would be envious of her? Why did it become putting up with it when it came to Big Brother? Little Hachi seemed to have already expected his answer. She weakly exhaled and put the jade box away. I know. But Big Brother, it won't be too late to say these words after I go to sleep. In order to refine this pill, she hadn't slept for several days and nights. Now that she had finally succeeded, she only wanted to take a comfortable bath and sleep for 3 days and 3 nights, alright? With that, she turned around and walked away. Hua Shuangshuang looked at her sympathetically. Do you plan to raise this golden-winged crow-bone beast yourself or send it back? Sun Yi asked. Hua Shuangshuang returned to her senses and looked down. The golden-winged crow-bone beast seemed to be afraid of being abandoned. Its body trembled slightly. Hua Shuangshuang sighed. I'll raise it. On the other side, Jun Jiuqing had just passed through the gate of the Illusion God Palace when he stopped. The half-folded divine vulture that had been following him also stopped. Jun Jiuqing said, Come here. The half-folded divine vulture obeyed and arrived in front of him. Sensing the cold aura emanating from Jun Jiuqing's body, a deep sense of fear welled up in its heart. It's just a golden-winged crow-bone beast, yet you wasted so much time. There was no emotion in his voice, only a bone-chilling coldness. An extreme sense of danger welled up in its heart. The half-folded divine vulture's eyes suddenly widened. It spread its wings and turned around to flee. However, before it could move, a silver streak of light flew out. Bang! Its head instantly exploded. A cluster of flames ignited and quickly swallowed the corpse. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. The half-folded divine vulture died just like that. Not even its bones remained. It was just a bit playful. You killed it so straightforwardly. Aren't you a bit too heartless? A gentle male voice sounded. Jun Jiuqing looked up. The person who came was a young man in his 20s. It's just a half-folded divine vulture. What's there to pity? Jun Jiuqing laughed. It's not a crimson gold heavenly phoenix or a great phoenix dragon. In my opinion, the second divine envoy doesn't need to care. Yu Qian raised an eyebrow. You can't say that. The divine beasts of the Illusion God Palace are all extremely precious. It's naturally a pity that it died just like that. Jun Jiuqing's lips curled slightly. He didn't think much of it. If Yu Qian really cared, he wouldn't have reacted like this. Yu Qian said, I'm here to ask you something. Jun Jiuqing nodded. Second divine envoy, please speak. Yu Qian took a step forward. I heard that Shangguanyu has 2 contracted divine beasts. One is the 3-eyed divine eagle and the other is the current young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan? Jun Jiuqing's eyebrows moved slightly. Why are you asking this, second divine envoy? You just have to say yes or no. Yu Qian smiled faintly. Elsewhere in the Illusion God Palace, Jin Yunlai was organizing the roster in his room when he suddenly heard footsteps. He looked up and saw that it was Xu Jing. He frowned slightly. Ever since Xu Jing was reprimanded in public, she hadn't shown her face much. Even when she returned to the Illusion God Palace, she always came and went in a hurry. Why are you here? He closed the roster and put away the crimson gold feather in his hand. Xu Jing's eyes swept across the roster and didn't stop. I'm here this time because I have something to ask. What is it? Xu Jing paused. She looked hesitant. After a while, she took a few steps forward and stood in front of Jin Yunlai. She asked softly, Have you seen the first divine envoy recently? Jin Yunlai frowned. You went to see him? Xu Jing bit her lip. He refused to see me. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.